Shen Bei, you have no choice. We need to sacrifice one person to walk out of the cave and attract the siege of the corrupted wolves, buying us precious time to escape. If you don't die, it's hard for us to survive. Inside a cave in the desolate valley, Xiaolong's eyes were vicious and his expression heavy as he spoke. Shen Bei leaned against the wall, a cold pistol pressed against his forehead. He stood like a stiff sculpture, his gaze scattered and dazed. In an instant, coldness, stinging, itching numbness. All kinds of maddening sensations spread from the empty spiritual world throughout his body, causing him to emit rapid bellows-like breaths. His eyelids trembled slightly, gradually regaining weak perception of his body. Shen Bei opened his eyes little by little. His gaze slowly focused, and finally he could see the surroundings clearly. Inside the cave of the corrupted wolves, unknown animal bones were scattered everywhere, covered with canine tooth marks. Decayed animal fur clumps and foul excrement odors constantly stimulated Shen Bei's brain nerves. At the same time, several humans not far away stared at him with ill intentions, their malicious gazes completely undisguised and exposed. I traveled through time. The Special Forces soldier Shen Bei was dazed. Are you listening to me? Xiaolong pointed the pistol at Shen Bei's forehead, his gaze sharp and full of pressure, and continued. He'll give you 1 minute. After 1 minute, either die under my gun or run out and attract the wolf pack. Shen Bei's face darkened with uncertainty and his heart thumped. What kind of hellish start is this? The next moment, fragments of memories from the original owner surged in his mind. After digesting the memories, Shen Bei was shocked, his heart trembling violently. This world turned out to be a universal exodus world. 80 years ago, due to an unknown catastrophe, this world suddenly mutated. A large number of unknown fierce beasts appeared, and evil seeds descended. At first, because the world was rich in spiritual energy, many people awakened superpowers, but various powerful alien beasts caught humanity off guard, causing heavy losses to the unprepared humans. However, due to the existence of superpowers and the fact that technological weapons had not lost their effectiveness, humanity's situation was barely tolerable. Ordinary superpowered individuals could protect themselves against common beasts. But the evil seeds had powerful bodies, immense strength, and were mysterious and unpredictable. Neither thermal weapons nor superpowered individuals could harm them in the slightest. They became unkillable existences. At least so far, no one had managed to kill an evil seed. Cities that had been struck by evil seeds were all reduced to ruins with no one for miles around. Therefore, the humans of this world gave up defending city walls and instead kept migrating across the wilderness. The only consolation was that humans had discovered a natural sanctuary, giving them a chance to catch their breath. This sanctuary was different from ordinary ones. It was a large moving creature. Humans parasitized on the back of this creature, wandering across the wilderness. At this very moment, Shen Bei understood the current dangerous situation he was in. A few days ago, this team was traveling nearby and found the wolf's lair unguarded. Under Xiaolong's erroneous command, they originally planned to enter the cave and easily slaughter the wolf cubs for meat. But they were tricked by the corrupted wolf king and trapped inside the cave. Now food was almost gone and they had nothing to eat. If they continued to delay, they would only perish on their own, and the corrupted wolves would enjoy a feast without any effort. Now, in order to survive, everyone was ready to sacrifice Shen Bei. Shen Bei gritted his teeth in pain. This opening was simply hell level. Countdown to death, 1 minute. At this time, others persuaded, Shen Bei, why don't you understand? Personal sacrifice serves the collective. Put the big picture first. You need to have consciousness. Don't say that. Going out to attract the wolf pack doesn't necessarily mean death, as long as you run fast enough. Yes, Shen Bei, give it a try. If you live, you are my father. I will repay your great kindness. Shen Bei, open your mind. Rather than dying under the muzzle, go out and gamble. I don't think you can run faster than my bullet, Shen Bei. What do you think? Seemingly persuading, but in reality the crowd was both coercing and bribing, verbally attacking him. Shen Bei was naturally not foolish enough to be swayed by a few words. He was only wary of the pistol in Xiaolong's hand. Moreover, it wasn't just Xiaolong who had a firearm. The others in the cave also had bulging waistbands, presumably also pistols. Some even carried AK-47 and M3A rifles on their backs. After a moment of thought, Shen Bei smiled. But you have to give me a chance, right? Xiaolong asked. What do you mean? A gun. I need a gun. You just need to run headlong. Xiaolong said in a deep voice, continuing. I certainly won't give you a rifle. And a pistol is not very effective against corrupted wolves. Unless you can hit the corrupted wolf's eye, otherwise the bullet will only wound the muscle and bone, not fatal, and will instead provoke the wolf's ferocity. Shen Bei did not speak, but his gaze was extremely firm as he stretched out his hand, asking for a gun. Xiaolong was silent for a moment, giving a subtle look to a man behind him. The man nodded, drew a battered pistol from his waist, and threw it to Shen Bei. Shen Bei caught it, and a single shiny bullet pressed inside. Click. He inserted it back. Just then, A line of text suddenly appeared in the corner of Shen Bei's pistol LV1 15 AP226 semi-automatic pistol range 50 meters. 1 bullet. Tactical rail accessories missing front sight, missing rifling severely worn 100 chance of barrel explosion. Not usable. Huh. Shen Bei was stunned. A cheat. Although the text was brief, how could he not understand? What was the purpose of the cheat? The process of pulling out and inserting the magazine just now increased experience points. More importantly, these people actually gave him a gun that would explode. Shen Bei temporarily suppressed his anger, not cursing or accusing. He wanted to try what effect the pistol would have after upgrading. He pulled out and inserted the magazine again. No experience points increased. Shen Bei frowned and disassembled the pistol slide barrel recoil, mechanism frame, and trigger mechanism completely. He also cleaned the grit inside the parts. Then reassembled. The moment the assembly was complete, the text in the corner of his eye appeared again. Pistol LV1 LV2 upgradable. Indeed, disassembling and assembling items increases experience points. Shen Bei mentally moved, upgrade. Pistol LV2 010. AP226 semi-automatic pistol with a range of 50 meters. 1 bullet. Missing tactical rail accessories, missing blade front sight, severe bore wear. Usable damage slightly increased. Aside from the level change, the description of this P226 has also undergone subtle changes. From unusable to slightly increased lethality. How mysterious is this? Shen Bei muttered to himself, as expected of an energy world with supernatural powers completely disregarding basic physical laws. Shen Bei intended to upgrade again. He disassembled and reassembled the pistol completely. Regrettably, this time no experience points were gained. Shen Bei's mouth twitched. That's it. There must be other ways to upgrade, need to explore. Various thoughts flooded Shen Bei's mind. 1 minute is up, hurry out. Xiao Long, growing impatient, urged. Shen Bei pondered how to break the situation. The ferocity of the decayed wolves outside was beyond his ability to resist. But at this moment, the few people opposite raised their pistols and rifles, muzzles pointing at Shen Bei. If Shen Bei delayed even a moment, they would turn him into a sieve within a second. Suddenly, Shen Bei retrieved a fragment from the original owner's memory. That was before Xiao Long led everyone into the cave. He had deployed a lookout on the cave top. Logically, once any dangerous beast approached or danger occurred outside the cave, the lookout would detect it immediately and send a signal, alerting the others inside to come out quickly to avoid being surrounded. But the fact was, after the group was besieged by decayed wolves, they never received any abnormal warning from the lookout. That could only mean one situation. The Wolf King silently ambushed the lookout from behind. This was the most fatal reason they were trapped. But this lookout was a sniper carrying a Barrett M95. Shen Bei's expression changed, and he carefully recalled the lookout's original position. Fine. You all want me dead to survive yourselves, right? Shen Bei sneered inwardly, a plan forming. Then, under the gaze of everyone, Shen Bei slowly walked to the cave entrance. This was the first time Shen Bei looked out at this world. Thin gray clouds in the sky kept shifting, revealing a patch of extremely beautiful blue sky. Sunlight poured down like fire, drenching the scorched, cracked earth. In the distance, robust, decayed wolves prowled back and forth, their drool dripping onto the scorching rocks of the valley, evaporating with sizzling white steam. Yet despite their hunger, they all stayed 500 meters away from the cave entrance, seemingly aware that beyond this distance, the power and accuracy of automatic rifles would greatly diminish. Over 300 decayed wolves surrounded the valley. If they left the cave's protection, the swift and agile wolves would just encircle and charge, tearing the entire team to shreds. However, the group couldn't afford to wait, so Shen Bei was pushed out as a sacrifice. Shen Bei observed carefully for a while. Among the decayed wolves, he spotted an extraordinary wolf. Its enormous body and smooth, pure black fur were rare among decayed wolves, but the most shocking thing was that this wolf was standing upright. The alpha wolf occasionally dropped to all fours, but most of the time it stood upright, using howls of varying lengths and pitches along with its forelegs to command the pack. Shen Bei listened intently. His mind shook with shock. This alpha wolf produced at least 30 distinct syllables. If these syllables could be combined, it would be practically a language. Is this really a decayed wolf? Shen Bei took a deep breath, turned back to glance at Xiao Long and the others. Xiao Long lowered his voice impatiently, making it sound hoarse. Move. What are you waiting for? Shen Bei grinned wryly. I want to make a final farewell with you all. No need, just complete your task. Oh, okay. Bang. A blood hole instantly appeared on Xiao Long's forehead. The bullet pierced his skull and burst out from the back of his head. Instantly, red and white splattered all over. A large mixture of blood and brain matter sprayed onto others' faces. Xiao Long's eyes went blank. Not even a scream escaped. He fell straight to the ground dead. The occurrence of this scene left everyone stunned and dumbfounded. Shen Bei put away the still smoking pistol, a gratifying smile of vengeance on his face. Damn it, giving me a broken pistol and wanting me to die. The last bullet kills you first. A gentleman does not hold grudges overnight. Revenge is taken on the spot. At the same time, Shen Bei had an unexpected surprise. Firing one shot actually earned experience points. Pistol LV2, 110. At this moment, the others in the cave never expected that events would develop completely beyond comprehension. Clearly the pistol was damaged. How could it still fire a bullet? Even if it could, Shen Bei actually used the last precious bullet to shoot Xiaolong. FCK. That pistol was clearly broken. Unbelievable, how did it fire a bullet? Damn it, are you all why are you still thinking about the pistol at a time like this? Just shoot him. Blast that bastard. As the others inside the cave angrily grabbed their guns ready to fire at Shen Bei at the cave entrance. But Shen Bai's figure had already disappeared. They raged helplessly, cursing incessantly. Meanwhile, Shen Bei sprinted at full speed, not charging straight into the wolf pack. Instead, he pushed his body to the limit, swerving left. This direction not only escaped the cave's line of sight, protecting him from gunfire retaliation, but more importantly, it allowed him to quickly reach the mountaintop and retrieve the sniper rifle. Breaking through more than 300 decayed wolves without a supernatural ability, user was pure fantasy, like throwing an egg at a rock. Suicide. There was only one way to break the siege: the sniper rifle on the mountaintop. At this moment, the alpha wolf saw Shen Bai's figure dash out, but did not order all the wolves to swarm him. It seemed to understand that Shen Bei was just bait thrown out by the humans. The alpha wolf stood upright, issuing howling syllables to coordinate the pack, sending a few decayed wolves to chase, while maintaining order among the rest. When necessary, it still walked upright, but never lingered in one spot. More often, it was completely hidden among the wolf pack. Apart from its wolf appearance, it resembled a calm, cruel, and cunning human commander in every way. Howl! Howl! Shen Bei glanced back from the corner of his eye. Several decayed wolves were charging so fast that stones on the ground were kicked flying. Like a supercharged sports car? Damn! Shen Bei had underestimated the beasts of this world. The decayed wolves moved so fast, it made his scalp tingle. Shen Bei let out a deep growl, pushing his physical limits again, his heart pumping blood at maximum capacity. Even his nostrils, unable to withstand the violent exertion, suddenly sprayed blood. Shen Bei disregarded everything on the brink of life and death, wishing he could grow 8 legs to flee. Within a few breaths, the distance between them was closing rapidly. The fastest decayed wolf was now less than 20 meters behind Shen Bei in the blink of an eye. Shen Bei could even feel the powerful pressure from the wolf as if it were dragging him backward. Finally, in Shen Bai's vision appeared a small cliff less than 3 meters high, like a wall standing before him. Shen Bei crouched and leaped. His arms reached up, fingers hooked the edge. Using the momentum, he rolled up. He turned his head to the left. A corpse had been gnawed to pieces, and a Barrett M95. Shen Bei didn't hesitate at all. He rolled a few steps, grabbed the sniper rifle on the ground, and pulled the bolt. A text prompt flashed in the corner of his eye: sniper rifle LV1 LV2 modified Barrett M95. Range 900 meters, 5 rounds, missing detachable bipod, missing adjustable rear monopod, missing scope, high lethality. No time to heed the prompt. Although the missing bipod would cause greater recoil, the rifle had an efficient muzzle brake that reduced recoil by 70. No bipod. No matter. He turned around. The nearest foul wolf had not only leaped onto the summit, but also opened its bloody maw, charging at him. The distance between them was less than a meter. Shen Bei could even smell the stench emanating from the foul wolf's mouth. He took a deep breath. He steadied his wildly beating heart. Without aiming at all at such close range, he fired a blind shot. Bang! The recoil slammed into Shen Bai's shoulder, leaving it sore and numb as if it were about to fall apart. The massive recoil crashed heavily into Shen Bei, pushing him back 10 centimeters. Sniper rifle LV1 LV2 for Shen Bei, after observing through Xiaolong's words and the cave entrance. Pistols indeed posed little threat to the foul wolves, but assault rifles and above were definitely lethal to them. Otherwise, why would these foul wolves suddenly become so clever? They knew how to set traps, and even avoided the most lethal range of assault rifles. Moreover, despite their hunger, not a single wolf crossed that invisible line. Such behavior was like an army. Only fear could make the foul wolves behave like this. So a sniper rifle more powerful than an assault rifle was undoubtedly a deadly weapon. Sure enough, after Shen Bai's blind shot, a huge bloom of blood blossomed on a foul wolf. The burning bullet completely ripped open its belly. This was a strong male wolf weighing at least 30 kilograms. The bullet's impact sent it flying several meters. After rolling a few times on the ground with almost all its internal organs spilled out, it still managed to struggle to its feet. Though severely wounded and incapacitated, it still swayed and let out a threatening low growl at Shen Bei, until another male wolf leaped onto the summit and bit through its neck bone. Such was the law of survival. A severely wounded foul wolf, unable to hunt, could only face a quick death. After a brief moment of shock at the foul wolf's vitality, Shen Bei, without a moment's hesitation, he swung his arm and fired another shot. Sniper Rifle LV1 25. The bullet carrying immense power struck another foul wolf directly in the waist, breaking it into two pieces. Even so, that foul wolf was still snapping at the air, crawling toward Shen Bei. He didn't even look. It wouldn't last more than a few seconds before dying. Shen Bei swung the muzzle and fired a shot at the head of the last foul wolf about to leap up. Sniper Rifle LV1 35. The bullet went straight in through its mouth, and the foul wolf fell like a discarded rag doll, twitching a few times before dying. After dealing with the pursuing foul wolves, Shen Bei rolled over and lay prone on the mountaintop. The old-fashioned front sight above the muzzle slowly aligned with the head wolf's head below. For now, if Shen Bei wanted to escape the encirclement of the foul wolves, he had to shoot the rider first, capture the chief first. He didn't have enough ammunition to kill all the foul wolves. Only by killing the head wolf would the other foul wolves fall into chaos and even scatter. Shen Bei had this speculation because while observing the wolf pack at the cave entrance, he had seen several male wolves that refused to obey the head wolf, challenging and rebelling. This clearly indicated that the pack was a coalition of several smaller packs. Once the head wolf died, the pack would certainly collapse and return to a state of disorder. Shen Bei extended the rifle barrel slightly. It was clear that this was an old, enhanced, modified Barrett with some manual customizations. The rifle had undergone simple reinforcement modifications, allowing it to fire more powerful bullets. A section of steel pipe was added to the barrel to extend the range. However, the rifle had no modern advanced sights, not even an old-fashioned rear sight, only a most primitive front. The straight-line distance from the muzzle to the head wolf was over 1,000 meters. Normally in perfect condition and in the hands of an expert, this rifle could reach a range of 2,000 meters. But due to poor maintenance and modifications, it looked more and more like an antique. Even if the rifle's range was sufficient, hitting the target would depend on luck, and extraordinary luck at that. The sniper rifle's muzzle swayed slightly with the head wolf's movement. Shen Bei adjusted that movement to within a micrometer. Bang! Sniper Rifle LV1 45. The huge, brutal gunshot echoed through the entire valley. The scorching bullet carved a white line through the air. In an instant, the head wolf's thick chest almost completely exploded. It lowered its head, just glimpsed the horrific wound, and then fell to the ground. The head wolf fell, and the foul wolf pack immediately fell into chaos. Most of the wolves were enraged, running back and forth across the valley, searching for the one who dared to challenge the entire pack. However, the wind, echoing through the valley, carried only the smell of gunpowder from somewhere, with no unusual scent. The few most keen-scented foul wolves had already rushed to the mountaintop, but it was already empty. Dozens of furious foul wolves charged toward the pre-existing target, the humans in the cave. Such a charge was tantamount to suicide. More than 40 strong foul wolves, the farthest only reaching within 10 meters of the cave entrance, were shot down one by one in a hail of bullets. The only effect was to consume a third of the squad's ammunition. After another half hour, the foul wolf pack fell into greater agitation and unease. A strong male wolf began to frequently roar and howl, trying to take over the head wolf's position. Seeing this, the humans in the cave became tense. Although this wolf was only much stronger than ordinary foul wolves and lacked the original head wolf's distinctly superior intelligence, who knew what would happen once the pack had a new head wolf. Bang! Another earth-shattering gunshot rang out, and the new head wolf fell to the ground. This time, the people in the cave finally saw a wisp of smoke rising from the opposite ridge. Someone took out a telescope and looked over, but only saw a patch of rocks with no sign of anyone. Is it Shen Bei? Him? Huh. We sent him out to lure the wolves, and what happened? He's nowhere to be found. That can't be right. The distance was about 1,200 meters. He hasn't been trained. How could he shoot so accurately? I think someone else saved us. Maybe Shen Bei is with that person. Whoever it is, it seems we're saved. The wolves have lost their head wolf again. They probably won't charge anymore. Alas, poor Xiaolong died so tragically. Once we get out, we'll settle the score with Shen Bei. The people in the cave breathed a sigh of relief and then began to condemn Shen Bei. But they ignored their own persecution of Shen Bei. The valley returned to stillness, and the afternoon sun grew even more scorching. Having lost the head wolf's restraint and leadership, the foul wolf pack turned from a disciplined army back into beasts driven only by instinct. About an hour before dusk, they lost their last shred of patience and began to leave the valley in twos and threes, until finally, after all the foul wolves had left the valley, the people in the cave cautiously emerged. Meanwhile, among the chaotic rocks on the opposite ridge, Shen Bei wore a lookout's khaki hooded cloak, which made him almost blend into the surroundings. Watching the people emerge from the cave dancing and celebrating their survival, Shen Bei curled his lips in a sneer and aimed the front sight at their heads. You're celebrating too early. You will pay for your actions with blood. Shen Bei was merciless. This is my favorite hunting moment. At this moment, the crowd in the cave, seeing the complete disappearance of the corrupted wolf pack, ran out with excited and inspired expressions. Neither the deceased Xiao Long nor the vanished Shen Bei could evoke any thoughts in them. Their gazes were fixed upon the dozens of dead, corrupted wolf corpses. Huh. Brothers, we didn't come out in vain this time. There are crystal core treasures everywhere. Harvest slowly. This stuff is currency. Quickly dig out the corrupted wolves' heads. Leave me 5. I plan to exchange them for a new arrow rifle. I should replace this antique in my hands. Haha, I plan to buy 2 pairs of wheels so that I won't have to rent a place in the shelter suffering the disdain and exploitation from landlords. Everyone wore greedy expressions, drawing out daggers and starting to collect the crystal cores from the corrupted wolves' brains. This item was not only currency, but also a means for the supernatural beings to recharge their abilities, gradually becoming a tradable currency. But little did they know, amidst the rubble on the opposite side of the valley, Shen Bei's sniper crosshair was already hovering over their heads, becoming the scythe of death. In Shen Bei's view, the moment they drove him out of the cave as bait to attract the wolf pack, as long as he was still alive, the two sides would forever be mortal enemies. Only through hunting could he take revenge. A slightly twisted smile adorned Shen Bei's handsome face. May there be no escape from hell. This phrase was a common saying in this world. It usually only appeared at funerals. The sniper rifle in Shen Bei's hand stirred like a sleeping lion awakened, poised to strike. Holding his breath, Shen Bei's gaze was sharp like an eagle. He gripped the cold gun body tightly, his heart beating in sync with the barrett in his hands. In an instant, his finger gently squeezed the trigger, and time seemed to freeze at that moment. Bang! A thunderous sound instantly shattered the valley. Of blazing flame erupted from the gun's muzzle, like a meteor streaking across the sky, carrying a bullet marked with the sign of death. The bullet left the chamber with a ferocious momentum, piercing through the air and leaving an invisible, yet distinct trajectory. It stirred up a scorching ripple in the air. A man in the valley, bent over digging for crystal cores, had his backside blown apart. His lower body shattered while the deadly bullet rampaged within, shredding his flesh and leaving a horrifying hole. Blood erupted like blooming red lotuses, accompanied by shattered internal organs staining half the sky red. This scene caused instant panic among the others. Some had their faces twitching in extreme shock. Others gasped as if an invisible hand had seized their throats, unable to utter a word. Some had blood-red eyes, overwhelmed by shock and rage, emotions surging like raging waves within. Enemy attack. Someone is sniping us. Damn it, who is it? Could it be Shen Bei? No matter who it is, find cover, don't just stand there. The crowd in the valley scrambled like startled chickens, trying to find cover to avoid the sniping. However, before the cave was an open area with very few stones to conceal their figures. Shen Bei swapped out a magazine. Pulling the gun bolt, death bullets were fired one after another. Although the crowd in the valley was running, Shen Bei had been a top special forces soldier in his previous life. Not to mention moving targets, even shaped live targets, had been shot down countless times. His shooting accuracy was exceptionally high. Bang, bang, bang. After a 5-round burst, 3 more corpses fell in the valley. Shen Bei stepped back, began to circle around, and changed the magazine. There are still 3 enemies hiding behind the giant rocks. Shen Bei squinted, his eyes agile, like a leopard crouching as he ran. During the detour, he began to upgrade his sniper rifle. Sniper rifle LV1 LV2 modified Barrett M95, range 900 meters, 5 rounds, detachable bipod, missing adjustable rear monopod, missing scope, missing significant lethality. Upgrade. Sniper rifle LV2 510 modified Barrett M95, range 1000 meters, 5 rounds, detachable bipod, missing adjustable rear monopod, missing scope, missing significant lethality. Increased shooting distance by 100 meters. Shen Bei's heart stirred. He wondered if continuing to upgrade would produce other effects besides increasing the shooting distance. After all, this was a world of energy where even supernatural beings existed, making it understandable to transcend physical rules. In a moment, Shen Bei had circled halfway back to his original sniping position on the mountain peak, where he had aimed at the Wolf King. He set up the sniper rifle, took a look, and chuckled. The 3 enemies were still huddled in their original positions, alternating as they peered over the rocks, trying to locate Shen Bei's position for a counterattack. Bang! Without hesitation, Shen Bei locked the enemy's head into his crosshair and pulled the trigger directly. A slightly muffled gunshot echoed throughout the valley. Sniper rifle LV2 610. As the first gunshot lingered in the air, another shot followed. Sniper rifle LV2 710. Before the sound of the gun reached the ears of the 3-1 enemy on the left, fell with a thud. The powerful bullet directly penetrated the rock, leaving half of his chest in ruins. A bloody, mangled arm flew out from the other side, landing on the ground. The second shot directly blew the head of the enemy in the middle apart. The man on the far left had his muscles twitching, each gunshot resonating like a hammer on his heart. He suddenly turned around and discovered a person lying at the top of the cave. The dark barrel of the gun was slowly turning towards him. He was in extreme shock and horror and in his pupils he had already recognized the face of the sniper. Shen Bei. This person was utterly astonished and confused. He never would have thought that the weakest member of the team, Shen Bei, was not only still alive, but also wielding a gun, beginning his revenge hunt. How is that possible? An indescribable regret, fear, and resentment tore at his heart like thousands of ants. If he could start over, he would definitely stop Xiao Long from releasing this demon. Bang! Suddenly he heard a strange high-pitched whine in his ears, the sound made by the bullet flying through the air faster than sound waves. Intense regret and coldness surged violently in his heart as he hoarsely growled, "No." Pshh. The bullet struck his forehead with deadly accuracy. Like a watermelon smashed on the ground, it exploded into a mist of blood. At this moment, Shen Bai's finger was still hooked on the trigger, emptying the magazine in a fit of emotional release. Sniper rifle LV2, 1010. Shen Bei exhaled softly, a gentle smile gracing his face. Upgrade. Sniper rifle LV3, 030. Modified Barrett M95, range 1100 meters, 5 rounds, detachable bipod, missing rear adjustable monopod, missing scope, missing high lethality, moving shot accuracy 20. After reading the information, Shen Bai's pupils contracted slightly. This upgrade brought a brand new feature, a significant boost in accuracy during mobile combat. You must understand, hitting a target while running is far more difficult than a blind shot. The body sways violently during motion. Even with a pistol, let alone a sniper rifle, precision is nearly impossible. The only practical option is an automatic rifle for suppressive fire. Even Shen Bei, a special forces soldier, cannot achieve perfect accuracy in mobile combat. Hitting 3 out of 10 shots is already a matter of luck. It seems this cheat of mine is extremely practical. Shen Bei put away the sniper rifle, slung it across his back, pulled up his hood, hiding his face in shadow, and walked toward the valley. Soon Shen Bai's field of vision was filled with the dismembered remains of decayed wolves and humans. The mixed stench of blood from 2 different species tormented his nostrils. After a brief adaptation, Shen Bei began cleaning up the battlefield. According to the original host's memories, wild beasts on the wasteland produce crystal cores, an important currency of this world and a common item for ability users. With that thought, Shen Bei picked up a dagger from the ground and started collecting crystal cores. Some cores had already been dug out by enemies and could be picked up directly. Shen Bei picked up one and held it up to observe. Night had fallen, a solitary moon hung in the sky, casting silver light that provided considerable visibility. The crystal core was about the size of a fingernail, diamond shaped with a faint blue halo. Inside, milky white lines like thick milk flowed slowly. Unfortunately, according to the original host's memory, this body lacks the conditions to awaken any supernatural ability, so it can only be used as currency. Shen Bei let out a long sigh. However, Shen Bei did not believe that he couldn't survive in this strange world without abilities. After all, even the ordinary people he had just killed managed to survive. Moreover, he had a cheat with infinite potential. The future looked bright. It took about an hour for Shen Bei to collect all the crystal cores, a total of 37 pieces. As for their exact value, due to the missing parts in the original host's memory, Shen Bei could only assess them after reaching a shelter. Next, Shen Bei searched the enemy's corpses. Aside from rifle bullets, there was only a bottle of water, a dry biscuit, and half a cigarette. It seems the situation is truly desperate, forcing a breakout. Shen Bei chuckled, sat cross-legged, and chewed slowly. After replenishing his energy, Shen Bei lit the cigarette, took a deep drag, and after a full 3 or 4 minutes, slowly exhaled a faint stream of smoke. One could tell he knew how to savor tobacco. After a few last puffs, Shen Bei stubbed the cigarette, but firmly, into the dirt. He cut 30 jean of wolf meat, stood up, gazed eastward, and set off under the silver moonlight, traveling through the night. According to the original host's memory, shelter No. 36 was to the east. Though the shelter was in motion, it usually didn't move too far. As long as he didn't make a large detour, he could encounter it. Whether by night or day, moving across the wasteland only required caution against wild beasts and evil seeds. And of course, humans. Wild beasts could be dealt with, but evil seeds left only one outcome: run or die. Shen Bei kept his pace, steady, walking slowly eastward. After dawn, in Shen Bai's view, a giant creature appeared on the desolate land ahead. Roughly 5 kilometers long, 300 meters wide, and over 10 meters tall. It resembled a constantly writhing slug. This was shelter No. 36. This colossal creature was called Titan by humans. Clearly, it had nothing in common with the Titans Shen Bei knew, either in form or essence. Perhaps this world had a misunderstanding of the term Titan. Nonetheless, it was a harmless, slow-crawling natural shelter across the wasteland. This creature became a shelter because of its most important trait: no evil seed could approach within a 500-meter radius of it. Humans did not know why it possessed this trait, but that didn't matter. As long as evil seeds couldn't get close, it was humanity's last hope for survival. At present 56 such shelters were known scattered across the wasteland. Humans followed behind the Titans, fleeing and constantly migrating. Wherever the Titan went, humans followed. Yet even within the shelter there was a class hierarchy. The wealthy and powerful humans naturally lived on the Titan's back. Numerous dwellings and facilities were built on it. For low-level individuals like Shen Bei, they had no right to board the shelter, they could only follow behind the Titan. Shen Bei quickened his pace to catch up with the shelter. Soon his field of vision was dominated by the Titan's map. Within a few kilometers, a very peculiar scene unfolded. Countless ropes, dense and immeasurable, were tied at one end to the Titan's shell. At the other end were countless houses on wheels. These houses stretched out behind the Titan for nearly 5 kilometers. One could imagine that when evil seeds came, the 5-kilometer range was absolutely unsafe. These houses would have to be adjusted, crowding and compressing into the 500-meter safe zone. This would inevitably cause friction and conflict. The truly safe place was only the shelter on the Titan's back, and not everyone could enter and settle there. After entering the area of houses, Shen Bei slowed his pace, exploring this strange world bit by bit. The sound of countless wheels and the Titan's huge body crushing surface gravel mixed into an indescribable noise. These houses varied in size. Some were residences, some were bars, and others were shops selling various items. Generally, the more wheels, the larger the house. That was why back in the valley, the enemy's lifelong aspiration was to buy 2 pairs of wheels. That would be a true home. Shen Bei wandered around and came to a shop. The sign above was simple, showing only a water droplet pattern. It was a water shop. Shen Bei climbed the ladder and pushed open the door. "Welcome." A bald boss sat behind the counter. Behind him was a giant water tank made of super strong alloy steel. Even bullets couldn't penetrate it, and many steel bars were welded on for protection. Shen Bei took out a crystal core and handed over his water bottle. "Fill it with water." The boss took the bottle with a smile, "Sure." Then he turned around and said, "Oh, by the way, water has gone up in price. Now it costs 5 crystal cores." Shen Bei, "This price is ridiculous." The water bottle in Shen Bei's hand was not large, a standard 500 milliliters mineral water bottle. A single bottle required 5 crystal cores. With prices like these, how did the humans of this world survive? Shen Bei naturally understood the difficulty of obtaining water. In this world, both groundwater and surface water were almost entirely contaminated. To obtain water, humans had to rely on the Titans. These colossal creatures would often cease their slithering progress, open their massive mouths, and extend rotating hollow flesh tubes to drill into the earth. They would pump out groundwater, filter it through their special internal organs, store the purified water in their gastric belts, and ensure their own water supply for survival. Humans would then bore a channel into the Titan's body, reaching the stomach to extract clean water for drinking. Although laborious, this method at least provided enough water for the entire No. 36 shelter. At that moment, the shop owner explained, "The Titan hasn't stopped to draw water for nearly 2 months. Scarcity drives prices, so water has naturally become more expensive." The owner placed a bottle of clean water on the counter. "Thank you for your patronage." Shen Bei shrugged and handed over 5 crystal cores. Leaving the water shop, Shen Bei carefully stowed the bottle. Following the memories of the original owner, he walked through the cluster of mobile houses. He arrived at an apartment building. The building was no more than 3 stories high. A small room in a corner on the 3rd floor was his residence. Back. The landlord was a greasy, middle-aged man, obese and bloated, gnawing on the bone of some His yellowed teeth tore at the half-raw flesh. "How was the harvest this time?" Shen Bei's face was calm. "All lost. This damned world is like that." The landlord wiped his hands and continued. "Yesterday we were drinking and laughing, today they're dead." Shen Bei nodded and turned to go upstairs. The landlord stuck his huge head out. "Why are you pretending to be clueless?" Shen Bei stopped, turned slowly, and asked with confusion, "What?" "Time to pay the rent." Shen Bei then remembered that the original owner had gone out to hunt beasts precisely to earn crystal cores for the rent. He counted out 20 crystal cores and handed them to the landlord. The landlord grinned like a blooming chrysanthemum and waved his hand. "Not a bad haul. I thought you'd need a few more trips. Go on up." Shen Bei gave a slight smile and continued upstairs. From the original owner's memories, the landlord had once been an ability user. He had enjoyed a period of glory. But later, during a battle with a beast, he was struck by the divine punishment miasma. His abilities were sealed, and he fell to being an ordinary person. Fortunately, he had earned enough crystal cores to buy 4 pairs of wheels, build a 3-story apartment, and become a rent collector, living a comfortable life. The so-called divine punishment miasma was a gas that appeared randomly and at any time without pattern. Once an ability user was exposed to this gas, no matter how powerful their ability would be directly sealed with no way to break the seal, inevitably reducing them to an ordinary person. The humans of this world believed it was a punishment from God for ability users who dared to probe the energies of heaven and earth. Thus it was called the divine punishment miasma. Shen Bei pushed open the door to his quarters. The interior was small. A bed occupied nearly 80 of the space. The room was fairly clean, though the bedding had a patina of grime. Black and shiny. Water resources in this world were hard to come by, especially drinking water. Even the lavish upper class rarely used purified water for bathing. Most people used secondary water filtered by purification devices. This water contained a certain amount of radiation, and after bathing the body would feel a strange tingling numbness. Though it would pass after a while, it was nothing like a comfortable bath, more like showering under electrified water. As a result, most humans rarely bathe, and their bodies were naturally filthy. In the room, Shen Bei pulled out all the few drawers. They contained nothing of value. But inside a wrapper he found, the front of the photo showed a little boy and a little girl together. They were about 5 years old. On the back, elegant handwriting, likely a woman's, read, "New calendar year 67, my sister Shun, and accompanying me to know. 7 Shelter, Scarlet Queen." Handwritten. Sister? Scarlet Queen. Shen Bei was startled. This part of the memory had not been inherited at all. Had he not searched the drawer, he would never. The name Scarlet Queen sounds formidable. Shen Bei pursed his lips. He put this matter aside for now. With his current abilities, he had no means to locate No. 7 Shelter. Then he grabbed the alarm clock from the table, tilted his head, and his eyes lit up. Alarm clock LV1 LV2 internal parts, damage time inaccurate, alarm broken, cannot tell time. Shen Bei's hands flew, quickly disassembling the clock into hundreds of tiny parts. Then he reassembled it. Alarm clock LV1 1005, upgrade. Alarm clock LV2 9510, upgrade. Alarm clock LV50 100, a fully intact alarm clock, accurate time keeping, clear chime, excellent quality, almost impossible to damage externally. If 10 crystal cores are inserted, it can be used as a detonator. A time bomb. Shen Bei he had never imagined that a small alarm clock after several upgrades could become a detonator. After all, crystal cores were essentially energy. They were merely absorbed by ability users. But now through the clock's effect, it could detonate this energy. Shen Bei cupped the clock and grinned. I thought only guns could be upgraded. It seems all mechanical objects. If I could get a Gundam or a suit of armor. I dare not think. Shen Bei's mind began to. Currently, the lower level, where Shen Bei lived, lacked the conditions for producing machinery. However, the upper level, on the back of the Titan, had facilities for manufacturing weapons and mechanical processing. After resting for a while, Shen Bei could not contain himself any longer. He wanted to try his luck and see if he could build a mech to increase his combat power. This was closely tied to his cheat. He went out walking along the removable wooden planks between the houses. Along the way, he bought a soil flour cake. This was a food made from a mixture of fine soil and flour. Truly the taste of nature. It had a gritty texture, somewhat like chewing on old bark. Yet this was the staple food of ordinary humans. Shen Bei slowly adapted to this unpalatable fare. Soon he arrived at a staircase. This was the only passage to the Titan's back. There were 2 ways to ascend: by walking up the steps or by taking the elevator. The elevator was generally used to transport supplies, its power supplied by an electric-type ability user. He grasped the wires with both hands, sparks crackling from his palms, his face strained red as he controlled the current output. The motor slowly wound, lifting the elevator upward. After being inspected by the guards and handing over 10 caddies of rotten wolf meat strips, Shen Bei was finally allowed to pass. It was a bit painful, mainly because Shen Bei hadn't been meticulous enough. He should have cut the rotten wolf meat into smaller pieces. Perhaps 1 caddy would have sufficed. Of course, the upper shelter was open to residents of this shelter as long as they left before sunset. The guards were merely exploiting their position to skim off some profit. Climbing to the top, Shen Bei's eyes lit up. If one disregards the current environment of mass exodus and the presence of evil seeds, the site atop this gigantic creature was utterly indistinguishable from a small city. Rows of factories churned out everything from canned goods, cement, and steel to weaponry and equipment. At the other end stood a small power plant supplying energy. The scale of production here, of course, could not rival that of the old era, and economies of scale were out of the question. Yet in these turbulent times, such measures were unavoidable. The streets boasted even more luxurious shops, paved roads, and rows of houses. Even the roadside was adorned with no small amount of vegetation and flowers. Further off stretched vast farmlands and steam-belching power turbines. Even in the apocalypse, the powerful and wealthy continue to live, well, largely unaffected. Shen Bei could not help but sigh. He walked along the street for a while and discovered a modern miniature factory, a facility where humanity employed technology to purify polluted water sources, also doubling as a bathhouse. Shen Bei lowered his head, sniffing the foul stench that clung to his body. To find work, he had to at least look presentable. Without hesitation, he decided to go take a bath first. Even if the water felt tingling, it was better than being reeking enough to kill a person. Entering the courtyard, he heard the rumbling of machinery and the gushing sound of water. At the same time, many superhumans were coming and going, clearly also bathing. These people evidently cared more about their appearance and image, far better off than the lower class who were still struggling for survival. Inside, he saw that the equipment's outlet split into 3 pipes. One led outside, supplying water to other dwellings for mopping floors, cleaning street dust, and watering trees and crops. Another pipe led to the nearby steam power plant. The third led to private cubicles, the bathing rooms. How much does a bath cost? Shen Bei leaned on the counter and asked. A staff member, without lifting his head or opening his eyes, was browsing a novel. Are you a superhuman? Please show your license. The license was an identifier for superhumans. Across the wasteland, numerous sanctuaries were scattered. Each sanctuary issued its own license to its superhumans. Though the designs and patterns differed, the sanctuaries mutually recognized them and offered certain conveniences. For superhumans, a bath costs 3 crystal cores. This price applies at any sanctuary. For non-superhumans, it's 5 crystal cores. Shen Bei was taken aback. Before the price hike, a bottle of drinkable purified water was worth only 3 cores. A bath costing 5. The staff member looked up, saw the astonishment on Shen Bei's face, and knew. You think it's expensive? The staff member explained quickly. Where do you think our water comes from? As long as the Titan doesn't stop moving, the water purification plant can't draw surface water. Shen Bei uttered an "oh." So it was still a water shortage issue. As long as the Titan kept crawling, water was indeed a major problem. Gritting his teeth, Shen Bei handed over 5 crystal cores. Cubicle no. 7, and you have only 2 minutes. At the staff member's reminder, Shen Bei nearly stumbled. Damn, only 2 minutes for a bath. What a ripoff. Shen Bei hurried to cubicle no. 7 and stripped off his clothes quickly. He twisted the nozzle. Time to scrub. The powerful stream of water pounded his body, making his skin tingle as if electrified. Shen Bei moved swiftly, scrubbing every inch of himself. Torrents of murky water washed away. The shower time couldn't be too long, for although the water had been treated and its radiation greatly reduced, it was still far from drinkable. Prolonged exposure would cause irreversible harm to the body. Despite all these restrictions and the high cost, being able to take a bath remained the proudest perk for sanctuary residents. The water from the nozzle soon diminished and finally stopped. The last droplet fell reluctantly, splashing a tiny blossom on his smooth, jade-like shoulder before trickling down the soft curve of his skin. So when the shower ended, he dried himself briefly. Feeling much lighter, he let out a long breath. Now Shen Bei combed his hair using a cracked mirror. He dressed and walked out. But as he passed the counter, the staff member caught sight of his refreshed face. Those slender, firm, slightly arched brows, sparkling pupils, and the lines that outlined his eyes together formed a nearly perfect portrait. The man suddenly felt his throat go dry, even though judging by physique this person should be male. But in this era where mere survival was the goal, desire had lost its restraints. Sex and violence had become the instinct of most men and women, adults and children, human and non-human. In the eyes of those craving stimulation and climax, all boundaries were rapidly blurring. Hey, the staff member called out. Shen Bei stopped and turned back. Is there something else? I just wanted to remind you, the staff member grinned. Sometimes being dirty is a kind of camouflage. I hope you understand. At first, Shen Bei didn't grasp what the man meant. But when he saw the staffer tracing a circle on his face with a finger, comprehension dawned. Thanks. Shen Bei returned to the street and pulled up his hood. Just then a violent tremor shook beneath his feet, like a small earthquake. The rumblings soon ceased. Then many people on the street cheered. The Titan has stopped. Heaven's grace. Drinking water can finally go down in price. Quick, let's go down and check if there are any mines nearby, coal or iron. We can sell them for money. Damn, surface water is a kilometer away. Let's go down and hire people to fetch water. Well, cut some trees, use them for firewood, or process them into planks, stock up for winter. The ever-crawling Titan had finally stopped after 2 months of trekking. This was also the busiest time for everyone in the entire sanctuary, top to bottom. There was much work to be done, gathering materials on the spot, and even fixing the wheels of houses, a rare opportunity. The lower-class people, especially landlords, first untied the tow ropes. They pushed their houses within a 500-meter radius of the Titan to avoid sudden attacks by evil seeds. Chaos was inevitable, with house owners jostling for spots and hurling curses at each other. Fights were common. Usually the great general who controlled the sanctuary would dispatch the enforcement squad of the tribunal to maintain order. At this moment, Shen Bei could choose to descend from the Titan and find any employer to earn a wage. But his goal was not odd jobs. It was to customize a mech. Soon Shen Bei arrived at a private workshop. They processed firearms here. Glancing around, he saw all kinds of guns scattered on the floor like trash. The owner was even using a 98K as a fire poker, skewering large chunks of meat and roasting them over the flames. Buying a gun. Look around, take your pick. Scrap metal prices. When the owner spotted Shen Bei, he greeted him as a customer. Shen Bei surveyed the place. Do you have a revolver? I knew you'd like antiques. The owner slapped his thigh. You've come to the right place. In other sanctuaries you might not find a revolver, but I've got one right here. Shen Bai's understanding of firearms in this world had ascended to an entirely new echelon. It was no exaggeration to say that the guns from this private workshop, if brought to Earth, could arm a band of violent thugs in some small African nation. Yet in this world these firearms were all antiquated relics, weapons only used by the destitute and ordinary. Shen Bei currently possessed a pistol and a sniper rifle. The sniper rifle served him well enough, its level gradually increasing. It could continue to be used. But the pistol was truly lackluster. The revolver with its far greater power was exactly what Shen Bei needed to replace it. The shop owner rummaged through the pile of weapons for a long while. He pulled out an M500 revolver. Here. The boss casually tossed it to Shen Bei. Shen Bei caught it and examined it. It was covered in rust, utterly neglected. The trigger was stiff, as if an M500 revolver. LV1 LV2, no ammunition, trigger action abnormal, cylinder axis slightly stuck, pollen sensitive. Rifling intact, high lethality. Multiple malfunctions, not recommended for use. The corner of Shen Bai's mouth twitched. This revolver back on Earth was a weapon twice as lethal as the Desert Eagle. A single shot could drop a large rhinoceros. Now it looked like scrap metal. But Shen Bei didn't care. He had a cheat transcending physical rules. Upgrading would fix it. What about ammunition? Shen Bei asked. The boss was taken aback. Aren't you collecting it? For combat. This. The boss scratched his head. The bullet caliber for this revolver is rather special. What's it called? Let me think. Shen Bei stated directly, 500 SW Magnum. Write that thing. Damn mouthful. The boss grumbled. I don't have any ready-made rounds of this caliber. If you need them I can process them on the spot. The boss pointed at the lathe and production line in the inner room, boasting, no exaggeration, all the ammunition in Shelter 36 is produced by me. Of course I can't handle the new stuff that ability users use. New stuff? Shen Bei asked. The boss chuckled. That refers to guns that use crystal cores as kinetic energy to fire energy blasts. Oh. Shen Bai's expression remained calm, but his mind was churning with shock. Ability users were also equipped with firearms. And ones beyond his comprehension. I'd love to see them sometime. How much? Shen Bei asked, fiddling with the revolver. The boss was quite straightforward. I'd give you this antique for free, but you'll need to custom order no fewer than 300 rounds. That'll be 50 crystal cores. Shen Bei rummaged through his pockets. He only had 6 crystal cores left. He set down the 20 gene of decay wolf meat he was carrying. I don't have that much for now. Can this serve as part of the deposit? The boss stroked his chin. Let me see your residence permit. Shen Bei pulled out the original owner's ID. The boss scrutinized it for a while, noting down the information, an old resident. He pondered a moment longer, then said, 20 gene of decay wolf meat. I can only count that as 4 crystal cores. I can process 300 rounds for you, but you'll owe me 80 crystal cores in return. Don't think I'm ruthless. I'm already being charitable enough. To put it bluntly, if you die out in the wasteland tomorrow, am I supposed to chase you to hell to collect the cores? Interest. The interest was indeed high, but the boss' concern wasn't unfounded. Dead men carry no debts. Normally 50 crystal cores for 300 rounds. Unit price 1 crystal core for 6 rounds. Out on the wasteland when hunting ferocious beasts, if luck was on your side you could kill one with 3 shots and obtain 1 crystal core. Overall the profit margin was decent. Shen Bei nodded, agreed. After the agreement, they drafted an IOU. The boss searched for the bullet blueprint and headed to the workshop. Come pick it up in an hour. Meanwhile Shen Bei sat on the ground, disassembled the revolver, then reassembled it. Revolver LV1 LV2. Shen Bei seemed to grasp the pattern. Whenever he obtained a new gadget, depending on the number of detachable parts, it almost always gained 1 level. Except for the alarm clock. Upgrade. Revolver LV2 010, no ammunition, cylinder axis slightly stuck, pollen sensitive. Rifling intact, high lethality. Usable, but beware of the stuck trigger during continuous firing monitor pall operation. Success. The trigger action abnormality had disappeared. From unusable to usable. That was the effect of upgrading. So satisfying. Shen Bei gripped the hefty revolver, found some sandpaper. He began to grind and polish it repeatedly, then applied oil. Soon an almost brand new revolver lay. The pistol had a distinctive appearance, a gray-black hue giving it a sci-fi vibe, like a tiny alien sidearm. At that moment Shen Bei spotted a bullet engraved with patterns on the table. Curious, he asked the boss what it meant. The boss replied casually, something the mystic side ability users tinkered with. They claim it boosts bullet power. I don't buy it. What's the difference between that and blessing a gun? Shen Bei shrugged, didn't dwell on it, pocketed the bullet, and decided to study it later. During the bullet processing downtime, Shen Bei continued deeper into the shelter. Before long he arrived at a courtyard bearing a gear-shaped sign. Inside several ability users were working. When Shen Bei entered, he saw people continuously converting chunks of iron ore directly into metal. Then others transformed the metal into various shapes, gun parts, and all sorts of unrecognizable. Shen Bai's eyes sparkled. This was the role of ability users, the most efficient and practical utilization of productivity. Who are you looking for? An old man in the courtyard eyed Shen Bei warily from behind a fence. Shen Bei stated bluntly, "I'd like to custom order some equipment." "A customer?" The old man smiled. "I'm Chun Anji, the supervisor here. Come in and talk." Shen Bei shook hands with him and followed Chun Anji into the office. "So tell me, what do you want to custom make? Any requirements?" Chun Anji was a man of few words and never stood on ceremony. Shen Bei pondered how to phrase his request. After a moment's thought, he said, "I'd like a portable exoskeleton mech. Is that something you can produce?" "A portable and mech?" Chun Anji was momentarily dazed. It felt like someone asking to shrink an elephant into a chihuahua. Was this guy pulling his leg? Chun Anji rested his chin in his hand, didn't flare up immediately, but patiently asked, "What exactly do you mean by portable?" Shen Bei clarified, "If possible, I'd like something that folds into a case I can carry while traveling. When needed, press a button, and it expands into a body-hugging mech." Chun Anji stared astonished. "How much does such a portable mech cost? Can I buy one?" Shen Bei. Chun Anji continued, "Kid, what era is this? Ability users are everywhere. What use is a bulky mech? The power consumption alone would be unaffordable. This isn't a black tech factory. You've come to the wrong place." An ability user who was converting or into metal sneered and burst into laughter. Shen Bei wasn't embarrassed. He was merely testing these people's abilities to see if any special powers could produce such miraculous gadgets. Seeing they couldn't make what he wanted, he lowered his requirements. "Then how about a close-fitting combat suit? That's even more demanding than the mech." Chun Anji nearly jumped out of his seat. Shen Bei pursed his lips. "Then what can you produce?" "My main requirement is maximum simplicity and portability." Shen Bai's question was evidently contradictory. How could a close-fitting combat armor be simplified? It involved a multitude of components and modules. These included the exoskeleton, the armor skin power modules, and so on. The construction was extremely precise and complex. Chun Anji, however, stroked his chin, pondered for a moment, and said, "Actually, our institute has indeed attempted to design combat armor. Though there are psionic users, there are also many ordinary people. If they could be equipped, they would represent a force not to be overlooked. Furthermore, with the special shaping materials from psionic users and crystal cores, it is theoretically entirely possible to design a close-fitting combat armor." Upon hearing the word theoretical, Shen Bei knew it was bad news. They might have tried, but they had definitely abandoned the project halfway. Shen Bei probed, "So how close could you get to your ideal armor?" Team leader Chen pondered for a moment, gently rubbing his chin, and said, "Let's not talk about how far the research got. The real question is whether you want it." Shen Bei naturally nodded. "If you didn't want it, why waste time? Give me 1,000,000 crystal cores and I can provide you with an armor that disregards cost and manpower." Shen Bei. To be honest, that joke wasn't funny at all. Shen Bei coughed. "Team leader Chen, you certainly have a sense of humor." Chun Anji shrugged with an awkward smile. "If I had that much money, I'd just buy a fighter jet." Indeed, that much money could buy 10 fighter jets. Team leader Chun smiled bitterly and continued, "Powered armor has been a long-standing research topic for us. Since the world changed, bringing new materials and energy sources, our progress has accelerated significantly, but we are still some distance from true powered armor." "What's missing?" Shen Bei asked curiously. "What's missing?" "Ahem." A nearby technician quickly, "Ahem yourself. I know what to say and what not to say. Just get on with your work." Team leader Chun glared at the technician and then said to Shen Bei, "The problem lies in the power system. Our powered armor struggles to support high-speed movement. It's hard to make a heavy suit run like a human unless we use crystal cores as the power source without regard to cost, but the consumption is enormous and not worth it." Shen Bai's heart stirred. "How heavy is the armor you've developed? And what's its size?" 1 ton, 2.5 meters tall humanoid. Team leader Chun said, "To ensure resistance to impact, we've used the lightest materials possible. This is already the minimum weight." Shen Bai's eyes lit up. "If we used ordinary materials, could we reduce the weight further?" Team leader Chin's expression turned odd. "If you don't need defense, you could remove many modules and use cheap materials. But honestly, buying that would be a waste. Such armor would just be a showpiece. Poor materials wear out easily and could break without an enemy attack." Shen Bei thought for a moment and asked, "What level of performance can this powered armor achieve? And what's the—" "Team leader Chin, you guessed right. I just want to experience what it's like to wear powered armor, fulfill a childhood wish. Whether it has combat capability doesn't matter. Even if you have money, you shouldn't waste it like this." Team leader Chun was speechless, but still said, "It can make you run. This kind of armor weighs only about 100 kilograms, but it's limited to just running, not even as fast as you on your own. As for the price..." He calculated in his mind. If you don't want weapons, just a shell, I can make it for 1,000 monster cores, and I can assemble it right now. 1,000 cores? Shen Bei thought and asked, are the materials you plan to use bulletproof? And even if it can withstand pistol rounds, I want something like Iron Man, just a showpiece that can move. But the functions need to be complete, like hand and foot thrusters, even if they're just for show. Performance doesn't matter. Oh, and the color should be camouflage. Kid, are you trying to steal the technology? Can you improve the performance? Team leader Chen eyed Shen Bei suspiciously. These days, all kinds of bizarre psionic abilities existed. His assembly room was full of such psionic users. No combat ability, but they created astonishing value. Haha, you saw through me. Shen Bei rambled. My usual hobby is taking apart remote controls, and I just want to see if I can modify powered armor and challenge my limits. Follow me to the lab. The kind you want I can assemble right now. Team leader Chen shook his head, speechlessly, thinking he could make a big profit. But in the end it was just a shell. That's much simpler. However, Shen Bei did not follow Chen Anji out. Chen Anji tilted his head. What's wrong? Shen Bei was a bit embarrassed, wanting to admit he couldn't pay for the armor right now. But the words died on his lips. He almost ruined everything. Shen Bei thought if he said he had no money, Chen Anji would definitely kick him out. Next time he had money, the man wouldn't bother with him or would raise the price. It was better to let Chen Anji make the armor first. That way, besides selling it to Shen Bei, he would have no other choice. A plan formed in his mind. Shen Bei said nothing more and smiled. It's nothing. Let's go. Stand on that platform. I need to scan your body measurements. Height and build are important, or the armor won't. Arriving at the newly built lab, team leader Chen operated a computer and pointed to the platform beside him. Shen Bei hesitated slightly, then stepped onto the platform. 8 infrared cameras descended from above and scanned his body up and down. All set. Team leader Chen worked on the computer for a few more minutes, and then a 3D printer nearby began working rapidly, automatically selecting materials. To Shen Bai's astonishment, components and modules were printed out quickly. Apart from necessary parts, many modules were even made of plastic. Some parts couldn't be completed by the 3D printer. A shape manipulation psionic user would ball up iron sheets and then stretch them into the required components. This combination of technology and mystical power opened Shen Bai's eyes wide. Team leader Chen seemed eager to show him, constantly picking up parts and checking data. He even showed Shen Bei, as if to say, if you want a fragile armor, it'll make you a truly fragile one. But Shen Bei didn't mind, he could upgrade it later. To his amazement, a dozen robotic arms moved quickly and began automatic assembly. Had technology in this world advanced so much? At least in artificial intelligence, it was far more advanced than the Earth had crossed over from. Can I assemble it myself? He asked hurriedly. Even though it was the most basic version, it was still a precision high-tech product. He wasn't confident he could disassemble and reassemble it. Team leader Chen paused his fingers on the keyboard and said, you want to assemble it yourself. This type of armor, even after removing many modules, has over 1,000 components. A mechanical arm can assemble it in minutes, but manual assembly would take at least several hours. Are you sure you want to do it yourself? Yes, I hope to assemble it myself, but I'd like you to provide me with an assembly sequence, said Yang Yuan. If you don't understand power armor, even if I give you an assembly sequence video, you may not be able to assemble it properly. Missing just one screw could render it inoperable, said Team Leader Chen. Then can you guide me? I can, but my time is valuable. Team Leader Chen paused, thought for a moment, and said, I can only give you an assembly video. If you have any questions, you can ask me later. Shen Bei nodded. No problem. Chen Anji shrugged, relieved, but muttered to himself, I really don't get it. If you can steal the technique, he'll eat this computer. Even if one learns the assembly without knowing the working principles or being able to manufacture the parts. Team Leader Chen shook his head speechlessly, then had the mechanical arm disassemble the newly assembled module, and then controlled the arm to move the freshly printed parts onto the assembly table. Come over, let's begin. With that, Chen Anji left the assembly table and went to the other side of the lab to work on his own research. Shen Bei rubbed his hands, opened the assembly video on the computer, and began to learn the assembly with a serious demeanor. Without the automated mechanical arm, manual assembly was indeed slow. But Shen Bei didn't mind. This was all EXP. EXP1, EXP1. Every time Shen Bei assembled a module into a component, he gained 1 experience point. Many a little makes a mickle. Time passed. After a full 3 hours, a power armor in camouflage color resembling Iron Man was assembled. This power armor, perhaps due to the removal of many modules, was only 2 meters tall. When the last part was installed, a white light flashed that only Yang Yuan himself could see. The power armor before him displayed its own data: pseudo power armor LV1 10001000, a suit of armor with no practical value. It cannot fight, provides no defense, and has no offensive capability. Perhaps it can be worn during festive celebrations to add to the holiday spirit. Shen Bai's mouth twitched. The word pseudo in front was quite telling. It all indicated that this thing was a plastic toy. Yet Yang Yuan was still excited. Oh, after just assembling it by hand, his EXP was enough to level up. Having upgrade data was fine. Of course Shen Bei would not level up now. After all, team leader Chun was still in the lab. If something were noticed, it would invite unnecessary trouble. This thing. Team leader Chun was too embarrassed to call it power armor and directly used this thing to refer to it. It has all the functions you wanted, but they're all ultra-crippled versions. It weighs about 20 gene, and it's just a fragile shell. Not to mention bulletproof, an ordinary person wielding a blade could probably cut through it. The most valuable part on it is this energy converter on the chest. You'd better not wear it to fight, or don't blame me if you die. Don't worry, Shen Bei grinned. Team leader Chun took a crystal core, manually opened the energy slot on the armor's chest, and inserted the crystal core. The next moment, the eyes of the power armor lit up. Alright, you can get in. He pressed again on the outside of the energy slot on the armor's chest, and the front half of the armor retracted entirely. The helmet, chest, abdomen, arms, and legs all contracted by half, allowing someone to step in directly. Yang Yuan stepped in, and after his hands, feet, and head were in place, the armor closed automatically. Immediately, he found that he seemed able to control the armor through his mind. Was there a weak AI inside? No, it had nothing to do with AI. It seemed to be a neural link technology, allowing him to control the armor's various functions with his mind. He was somewhat surprised. They even had neural link technology. The technology of this world was truly not. Since all functions are ultra-crippled, the ventilation system is also poor. You'd better open the faceplate, or you might suffer from hypoxia, said team leader Chun. Alright. With a thought from Shen Bei, the faceplate automatically retracted to both sides, revealing his face, but the retraction speed was a bit slow due to the poor power. He tried walking and felt as if he was wearing a heavy shell. Although the armor was light in weight and his movement speed wasn't slow, there seemed to be no additional power. Next, he tried the engine functions on his limbs and found that his palms and soles could indeed emit light particles, but there was almost no thrust. Additionally, there were hidden firing ports on both shoulders, each capable of holding 10 pistol-caliber bullets, but the power. Don't bother testing. The power is almost non-existent. It has all the functions you wanted, but as you wished, it's just a showpiece. You can only move it with your own strength, though the joints are flexible enough. Theoretically, if your strength is sufficient, you can move faster, but it will wear down the parts. Team leader Chen shook his head helplessly. A single crystal core lasts 3 minutes. Replace it yourself when it's used up. This energy converter is also a crippled version, causing huge energy waste. Shen Bei slowly widened his eyes. Only 3 minutes. Damn, that's too short. He was embarrassed to say it aloud, as it could easily be misunderstood. However, Shen Bei soon found a pleasant surprise. Just now, after wearing the battle armor for only a minute, a text flashed in the corner of his pseudo armor. EXP 1. This. Does it increase by 1 EXP per minute? Just wearing it earns EXP. He was delighted. If so, the EXP gain rate of this power armor was even easier than that of a pistol. Shen Bei had figured out the rule. Any item only gives 1 batch of EXP upon assembly. To gain EXP, you must use the item. For example, firing a gun. But firing requires bullets and hitting a person or beast. That's why Shen Bei had emptied his magazine when sniping teammates earlier. Only when something is hit does EXP increase. But this battle armor gains EXP in an unexpectedly convenient way. As long as it's worn continuously, EXP is continuously acquired. Isn't that great? At this moment, Chun Anji said, Alright, according to your request, the battle armor is done. For 1,000 crystal cores, pay up. Shen Bei stepped out of the armor and gave a weird grin. I don't have that many crystal cores right now. What? Unable to pay, eh? Chun Anzi's mouth twitched. He could tell that Shen Bei was probably a lower-level resident. If not for the fact that Shen Bei had no odor on him, he wouldn't have received him at all. But if you're broke, why did you waste my time? Good grief. Now that this toy is made, you tell me you have no money. Who the hell am I supposed to sell it to? Can I get it on credit temporarily? Shen Bei asked tentatively. I'm an old resident of Shelter 36. Chun Anji glared at Shen Bei, his face green with anger. Shen Bei left the research institute amidst Chun Anzi's curses. Although annoyed, Shen still granted Shun a 10-day deadline. If he failed to produce 1,000 crystal core units within that time, the toy would be destroyed. Yet Shen Bei was inwardly confident that Shen Anji would never destroy it. After all, it cost money. Besides selling it to him, no one else even spared it a glance. Selling it as scrap would be a bitter loss. Shen had no other choice. Back at the weapon shop, the owner had already prepared 300 rounds. Shen Bei thanked him repeatedly and took them. By the end of the day, Shen Bei was drowning in debt. Yet he felt no pressure at all. His cheat ability was his ultimate survival support. Finally, Shen Bei used the remaining meat strips to replenish some sniper rifle ammunition. As darkness fell, he returned to his rented room. Nighttime in this world offered little entertainment, only gambling bars and brothels. Shen Bei disliked all of them, so he simply gazed at the setting sun in a daze. At that moment, many residents on the wilderness were still rushing toward the shelter. Some carried coal from the mines, others were loaded with, or others bore wild fruits gathered from the dense forest. Just then, at the far edge of Shen Bei's vision, where sky met earth, suddenly several terrifying black auras shot up, like smoke pillars, forming 7 towering columns that seemed about to pierce the heavens. Within those thick pitch-black columns, countless ferocious faces coalesced from the dark smoke. Shen Bei stared intently, his heart pounding heavily. "That is," he exclaimed, "a demon seed." At once the entire shelter erupted with shrill warning sirens. Residents craned their necks, gazing westward. Chaotic voices filled the air. "Outsiders run. The demon seed is coming. Damn, it's the Skywolf poison smoke demon seed. This thing is still active. According to records, its last appearance annihilated a city of 1 million. Not a single survivor, all dead. What the hell are you people still not in the safe zone thinking? Drop everything and run for your lives. Useless fools still carrying stuff while running." At that moment, those still 500 meters outside the Titan shelter, upon hearing the warning, all turned back to look. Seeing the terrifying demon seed, their legs turned to jelly, and they sprinted toward the shelter, howling with terror. The ores, or wild fruits, earned from a hard day's work, were all abandoned on the ground. The entire wilderness descended into chaos due to the sudden appearance of the demon seed. People inside the shelter shouted encouragement to those still trying to enter. At that moment, from among the 7 smoke pillars, a strand of black smoke flew out, condensing into a horrifying human face the size of a football field. It hurtled forward, opening a massive maw filled with jagged teeth, and in the wind, faint demonic laughter echoed. A strong gust could scatter even a person, let alone smoke. Yet this mass of smoke held its shape as though it were a true demon, sending chills down Shen Bei's spine. Where the smoke passed, the sky darkened, and the sun lost its luster. Those who ran too slowly inhaled the toxic fumes, instantly bleeding from 7 orifices, their bones seemingly dissolving, collapsing into a pile of flesh. In the blink of an eye, those piles of flesh bubbled like boiling water. With a bang, they exploded into bloody mist fireworks. Just then, a resident, his face twisted with terror and rage, yanked out his rifle and fired backward while running. The bullets struck the black smoke, sparking bursts of flame, but they could not slow the demon seed's advance. "Ah, no. Help. Pull me up." The black smoke devoured humans one after another, blood mist fireworks bursting in the darkness. Gruesome, yet beautiful. Among those fleeing for their lives, a psionic warrior threaded his way. Purple lightning crackled within 3 meters around him as swirling air currents surrounded his body. With a flick of his thumb, a blade thunder swept across the sky, devouring heaven and earth, stirring the sun and moon, penetrating the void with immense electric current aimed directly at the demon seed. A thunderclap flashed across the sky. Shen Bei shook his head. Though the offensive was fierce, that black smoke was a demon seed after all. Even though the thunder blades slashed into it, it inflicted no damage. However, psionic warriors were naturally far superior in physical constitution to ordinary people. He sprinted at incredible speed, even grabbing a few lagging residents and carrying them along. Finally, after all residents had entered the Titan shelter's range, they collapsed on the ground, gasping and coughing up blood. The black smoke demon seed, upon approaching within 500 meters of the shelter, hit an invisible air wall and could advance no further. Murmurs of discussion arose again among those in the shelter. How many died this time? I roughly counted. About 30. Damn this cursed world. There's no help for it. When the Titan stops, it's our chance to gather supplies. If we don't go out, we'll have nothing to eat or drink. The key is this shelter's position is terrible, too far from the mines. Sigh. Not long after, the black smoke demon seed drifted past shelter No. 36, heading east, and vanished. The demon seed came and went swiftly, leaving only blood-red craters on the wilderness. The residents were long accustomed to life and death. In mere moments, some returned to playing cards, others to drinking. Shen Bei sat in his small room, witnessing firsthand how fragile life was, and felt a pang of dizziness. I need to become stronger, much stronger. Even if I can't kill a demon seed, I must outrun it. The scene that had just unfolded deeply shook Shen Bei. Frankly, if he himself encountered a demon seed in the wilderness, he truly wouldn't be able to outrun it. Thus, upgrading his battle armor was urgent. Tomorrow he'll go hunting and collect the 1,000 crystal core units as soon as possible to get my hands on that armor. Once the armor was on, Shen Bei believed he would soon upgrade into Iron Man's nanosuit. The sun had fully set. Night descended. Stars glittered brilliantly. The starry sky of this world was especially enchanting, as if studded with countless diamonds. Shen Bei's eyelids drooped as drowsiness washed over him. Before sleeping, he tied a metal wire at the door as an alarm. Then he tilted his head and drifted into dreams. It was his first sleep in this world. Shen Bei had a bizarre dream. He became a colossal spaceship. He was constantly processing massive data and repairing the ship, yet he could never fix the endless failing parts of his own body. In his superbrain data, red alerts flashed everywhere. Halfway through his sleep, a signal emanated from the depths of his consciousness. Like a computer running at high speed, dozens of data streams transmitted instantly to various parts of his body, causing him to shift sideways 30 centimeters in an eerily precise manner. Then he suddenly sat up, his left hand grabbing a revolver and thrusting it forward like lightning, pressing it against the chin of an uninvited guest. This series of movements was so swift that Shen Bei's eyes only truly opened after the gun had already aimed. In the darkness, his pupils emitted a faint glimmer. Shen Bei froze. When had he sat up holding the gun? An involuntary reflex. In that instant, he realized there was an uninvited guest. "Who are you?" he demanded in a low voice. Deliberately lowered, his clear voice gained an even more subtle magnetism, yet the coarse revolver in his hand stood in stark contrast to that tender water-like voice. The massive revolver in Shen Bei's hand, with its enormous size, elongated barrel, and intimidating black muzzle, left no doubt that it possessed sufficient power to reduce the skull of even the fiercest armored bear to powder within any range. This is not a weapon that an ordinary person can wield. Its violent recoil is comparable to the firepower of ancient war machines. Firing the gun with one hand, even if Shen Bei's wrist miraculously remained unbroken or cracked after the first bullet, the subsequent recoil would be enough to significantly shift the grip position, greatly increasing the time and precision required for subsequent aiming. However, at this moment, the savage revolver was already aimed at the intruder's jaw, rendering the issue of aim. Even if it were to cause Shen Bei's wrist to fracture upon firing, that would only occur after the intruder's head had been transformed into a cloud of debris. The head beneath the gun appeared weak and frail. Whether it was this domineering revolver or the least powerful ordinary pistol, both could easily penetrate her skull. Yet few could easily pull the trigger, especially after realizing the intruder's appearance, as almost all men would hesitate to make the decision to shoot at first glance. For she was an extraordinarily beautiful girl, seemingly not yet 20 years old. In an era marked by widespread hardship, women's actual ages often appear much younger than their looks. She might be only 18 or even younger. She had short, deep chestnut hair and a healthy, sun-kissed complexion, with her sensual lips adorned in a peculiar shade of purple-gray, and a pair of bright, large eyes fixed intently on Shen Bei. Those eyes sparkled with panic, yet were intertwined with a hint of excitement and hope. The girl wore a short leather jacket, the collar plunging low, its hem just short enough to outline her ample bosom and taut waist, as if nothing else lay beneath the leather. Her lower body was paired with tight-fitting jeans that clung to her curvaceous hips and long, strong legs resembling a second layer of skin. Not only did the girl possess outstanding beauty and an elegant figure, but she radiated vibrant vitality and excess energy, evident from the strong scent of alcohol that clung to her. Clearly, the alcohol she had consumed had overstimulated her nervous system, focusing her on seeking thrills and excitement while rendering her numb to the fear of life and death before her. Despite the handgun hovering just beneath her chin, ready to send her to the heavens at any moment, her slightly dazed eyes, dulled by alcohol, remained fixated on Shen Bei's captivating gaze and the hand gripping the gun. Shen Bei's clean hands, with their smooth lines and delicate skin, made the girl feel that her own hands, which she considered proud, paled in comparison. A glint of killing intent flickered in Shen Bei's eyes as he noticed the metallic wire lying on the ground. This woman had actually managed to disable his alarm trap while intoxicated. His long finger resting on the trigger slightly contracted. With just a little more pressure, the weapon would unleash its thunderous strike. The girl finally sensed this deadly change, her expression snapping to clarity as fear spread across her features. Shen Bei maintained his stance with the handgun pointed at her, rising to his feet. A mere tremor of his finger could transform the girl's beautiful face into a gruesome smear. The gun pressed firmly against her, forcing her to rise onto her tiptoes, maintaining an extreme posture that only a ballet dancer could achieve. Any minor movement could result in an accidental discharge. Yet at this critical moment, Shen Bei made an unexpected move. He first gently combed through her chestnut short hair, then touched behind her ear, lightly massaging along her neck, even inserting his fingers into her slightly parted, rapidly breathing mouth. The girl instinctively wanted to bite down on those two cold, slippery fingers, but she dared not make any move, merely allowing fear and tension to spread throughout her body as sweat began to silently trickle down her cheeks and neck. The girl instinctively wanted to bite down on those two cold, slippery fingers, but she dared not make any move, merely allowing fear and tension to spread throughout her body as sweat began to silently trickle down her cheeks. Although they were not particularly full, her breasts received special attention, needed repeatedly. The cool, slippery touch of Shen Bei's fingertips was akin to a wandering snake or the tender caress of a lover's tongue. Next, he turned his attention to her lower body, unabashedly unbuttoning her jeans and roughly pulling them down below her knees, commencing a thorough, and deep examination. In this era filled with mutated energies and genes, any contour or curve on a woman's body could conceal deadly weapons or biochemical organs, especially for those adept at genetic evolution, where organs could change shape or multiply, at will appearing ordinary on the outside, but possibly hiding tentacle-like structures within. The girl furrowed her brow in pain, a few hoarse moans escaping her throat, and only then did Shen Bei's search come to a temporary halt. He stepped back and holstered his handgun. Confirming that she was unarmed and that her drunkenness was not a ruse, and perceiving no obvious malice, Shen Bei asked in a low voice, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" The girl's eyes burned with fervent flames as she responded, "My name is Bai Luo. I thought you looked super cool when you came out of the shower. How did I never notice before? Hee. By the way, I'm a master locksmith." Shen Bei was no stranger to such situations. In this era of rampant violence, women, due to their physiological and physical disadvantages, often find themselves in a lowly position, or many can only exchange their bodies for basic survival resources, such as food and water. With Bai Luo's youth and beauty, she could indeed survive through such means, but to attain a better life, she must master practical skills to provide value to the shelter she belonged to. As a former mercenary in his past life and a wasteland hunter in this one, Shen Bei was already well versed in the essence of money, violence, women, and trade. However, the current situation seemed to contradict his principles, as it touched upon certain lines he was unwilling to compromise easily. "I have no money." Shen Bei now had not a single crystal core left on him, as it had all transformed into bullets and rent. All that remained was a pound of meat. This girl was clearly worth far more than that. The flames in her eyes burned even more fiercely as she suddenly pounced on him, like a mother leopard, the force of her tackle pinning Shen Bei onto the bed. Breathing heavily, she forcefully tore at Shen Bei's clothes, her voice a mix of desire and growls. "This time no money. You just searched me so wickedly. Hurry up and give it to me now." The direct approach immediately yielded results. Yet she had to stand up, leaving the position that could immediately quench the fire within her body. Shen Bei's revolver once again pressed against her chin, lifting her up. "I have a lot to do tomorrow. I need to conserve my energy." One moment Shen Bei had been like a ball of fire, and the next he was completely ice cold. The girl was nearly driven mad by this sudden shift from heat to cold, yet she had to retreat under the gun's pressure. Almost completely bare, she clutched her clothes, watching helplessly as the door slammed shut and locked in front of her. Shen Bei sat straight on the edge of the bed, the handgun resting horizontally on his knee. Hearing the shrill, desperate threat from outside Shen Bei, "One day I will rape you, Shen Bei." After daybreak, Shen Bei took out the strips of meat, tore them into pieces, and ate them while sipping water. Then he slung the Barrett sniper rifle over his back and tucked a revolver into his waistband. He placed the bullets in a satchel strapped on a small backpack and headed out. The landlord, eyeing him meaningfully, revealed yellowed teeth and asked, "Going out?" Shen Bei nodded. "Son, don't lose heart. So what if you're the 3-second war god? The point is to solve problems." The landlord spoke inexplicably. At first Shen Bei didn't understand at all, though it took him a moment to process. Slightly bewildered, he asked, "You know?" Puff, the landlord chuckled. "Some girls do come out looking for business. But I think this one wasn't very professional." "How so?" "You paid up so quickly, yet she still looked unhappy." Shen Bei. "Of course she was unhappy," Shen Bei explained. "I didn't pay for her services." "Ah." The landlord nodded knowingly. "No wonder she left cursing." Shen Bei waved his hand. Shen Bei didn't immediately leave the shelter to venture into the wasteland. Instead, he turned toward the mission hall. A blackboard hung there listing the shelter's material requirements and temporary jobs posted by other employers. Generally, most tasks required superhumans, as their individual combat prowess far surpassed that of ordinary people wielding firearms. Though it was called a shelter, it was actually quite vast, no less than a small town. This didn't even include the wheeled houses trailing behind the Titan. Shelter No. 36 was a medium-sized one housing roughly 90,000 residents. Some larger shelters could accommodate 200,000 to 300,000. Thus, whenever the Titan stopped, a plethora of employment opportunities emerged. Shen Bei squeezed through the crowd and peered at the blackboard. There were plenty of tasks listed. Many involved mining, logging, and similar labor, work that avoided battling beasts and prioritized safety. There were also long-term assignments issued by the shelter's Grand General. One such task was scouting the Titan's forward direction. Few undertook it, as it required staying ahead of the Titan, whose path was entirely uncontrollable by humans. It could veer anywhere. One might predict a straight line, only for the Titan to change course the next day. By the time scouts returned, they'd struggle to locate the shelter itself. Yet this task carried significance. Across the wasteland lay vast urban ruins teeming with various cunning and ferocious mutant creatures, mutants, living corpses, and monstrous beasts. That wasn't a major concern. The shelter's superhumans were no pushovers. The real issue was that once the Titan entered a ruined city, it would tilt and jolt violently. The shelter had to reinforce buildings in advance, and the trailing wheeled houses had to be unlashed and detour around. A massive undertaking. Naturally, advance warning was essential. Many people went bankrupt after each passage through ruins. Shen Bei glanced over and fixed his gaze on one task. It was to explore an abandoned coal mine, check if beasts had taken residence, offering 30 crystal cores. If beasts were present and eliminated, the reward was 200 cores. In truth, underground environments weren't ideal for a sniper. The sprawling cities and mountainous terrains above ground were the sniper's paradise. But the reward was too tempting. Generally, all mines in the wasteland had been repeatedly excavated. Today, shelter no. 36 arrived, tomorrow shelter no. 30 might pass by. Naturally, they would loot nearby mines. The likelihood of beasts lurking inside was minimal. Shen Bei discreetly memorized the task's location. He turned and walked out of the mission hall. Suddenly, a man blocked his path. Shen Bei. Shen Bei slowly lifted his head to look at him. The man wore a leather combat suit unlike standard military attire, with the front partly unbuttoned, revealing a broad, muscular chest covered in hair. His aquiline nose and deep gray eyes lent him an aura of power and heroic charm. The face bore a resemblance to Xiaolong. Drawing from the original host's memories, Shen Bei recalled the man's name. Xiaoying, one of Shelter No. 30 SIXS combat-type superhumans. Why are you back alone? Where's my brother Xiaolong? Xiao Ying's tone was grave, his gaze hostile. Shen Bei shook his head. I don't know. They abandoned me on the way, so I returned. Huh. Xiao Ying looked skeptical. Abandoned you? Yes, any problem? Huh. Xiao Ying's eyes turned dark and severe, his expression shifting with a flicker of brutality. The direction of your mission should only have had decay, wolves, no real danger. Why would they ditch you as dead weight? Shen Bei couldn't be bothered. Go ask your brother then. The hell I will. Xiao Ying's temper flared instantly. Tell me what happened. Where's my brother? Shen Bei repeated, I don't know. With that, he brushed past Xiao Ying. A first-rank superhuman, unless caught off guard, wouldn't intimidate Shen Bei in a direct confrontation. Guns and artillery still held threat and advantage. Especially the firearms Shen Bei carried, which could be upgraded. Xiao Ying's gaze locked onto Shen Bei's retreating figure. A foreboding feeling crept into his heart. He wouldn't believe a single word Shen Bei said. After a moment's thought, Xiao Ying's eyes flickered as he left the shelter, heading toward the route Xiaolong had taken for the mission. Damn it. If my brother is still alive, you Shen Bei are safe. But if something happened to him, you'll be buried with him. Xiao Ying's face was ruthless. Meanwhile, Shen Bei hid in a concealed spot, watching Xiao Ying's distant figure with narrowed eyes. If Xiao Ying found Xiaolong's corpse, even a fool would know Shen Bei was the prime suspect. After all, the entire squad had been shot to death. Beasts don't use guns. From then on, Xiao Ying would be in the shadows while Shen Bei was in the open. At any moment, revenge might strike. Shen Bei gritted his teeth, temporarily abandoning the mission to tail Xiao Ying. He had to find a good ambush spot and eliminate Xiao Ying as well. Eliminate the root of future trouble. In this world, even a second's delay in killing could lead to lifelong regret. An hour later, Shen Bei set out. The harsh sunlight laden with ultraviolet rays mercilessly scorched the earth, but Shen Bei's heavy cloak shielded him from all the rays. He walked at a steady pace, unhurried but constant, and only stopped 3 hours later before a solitary. After thoroughly checking the villa, which had lost half its roof, ensuring it harbored no deadly creatures, nor was the lair of a large predator, like an armored bear, Shen Bei relaxed. This is the spot. Shen Bei lay in ambush at the route Xiao Ying would take on his return. This was the grave he had chosen for Xiao Ying. What of a superhuman? It was a matter of kill or be killed. Shen Bei waited in silence. Just as he closed his eyes to rest for a while, he suddenly remembered something. He took a bullet out of his pocket. This bullet was taken from the table of the gun shop owner in the shelter. Intricate patterns were engraved upon it. Running his fingertip over them, he could feel the unreality of these patterns. They didn't seem to be carved, but rather natural markings of the metal itself. Yet when he felt carefully, he could still sense the grooves carved into it. However, the grooves were so shallow that they were invisible to the naked eye. The craftsmanship was clearly as exquisite as that of a high-precision machine tool. A mystery-type esper. In this world, espers were roughly divided into two major categories. The combat type possessed great power, capable of destroying anything except for the evil creatures, which could not be killed. Theoretically, they could slay any fierce beast, walking corpse, and so on. Meanwhile, the combat type had many branches. Common ones included natural elements, genetic enhancement, and so on. The support type, on the other hand, lacked formidable combat power and mainly served to improve the living conditions and equipment needs of the shelter. But the mystery type was somewhat eerie. Some mystery type espers possessed combat power comparable to the combat type, for instance, manipulating space-time, and so on. However, some mystery type espers could only help enhance the combat power of the combat type. Now the engraved bullet in Shen Bei's hand was made by a mystery type esper. At that moment, the information of this bullet also appeared at the corner of Shen Bei's side. Rifle bullet LV5, max level. Disposable item. This bullet is engraved with mystical energy, increasing range by 500 meters, greatly increasing lethality and accuracy, and possessing strong armor-penetrating ability. If necessary, this bullet can adjust its trajectory. After reading the information, Shen Bei was stunned. An ordinary bullet once engraved with such patterns could produce such astonishing changes. Even just the increased range alone was absolutely a deadly trick to confuse enemies. The enemy would misjudge the gun's effective range, but the bullet cheated. That was nothing. The most insane part was that it could change its trajectory. Shen Bei couldn't imagine how it could. Was it barrel-shaking technique? Even in such a bizarre world, once the bullet was fired, it was no longer under the shooter's control. He couldn't figure it out. Just then, a flash of light flickered in Shen Bei's spiritual sense. Vaguely, it felt as if a divine power connected with the bullet in his hand. My! Shen Bei suddenly noticed that the bullet in his palm shifted slightly to the left. Turn right. The bullet head slowly rotated, pointing to the right. Heavens! Shen Bei exclaimed. So changing the bullet's trajectory originated from the conscious level. That is, after this bullet was fired, it could turn during flight according to his will. Shen Bei was suddenly overjoyed, as expected of a mystery-type esper. The bullets they engrave can be used by anyone. He clicked his tongue, feeling that the gun shop owner was blind to a great business opportunity. At once, Shen Bei took out his own bullets and rummaged through his backpack. He pulled out an alloy file less than 10 centimeters long. He began to engrave, copying the patterned bullet. Although Shen Bei was not an esper, he felt that as long as he imitated, he would definitely gain experience points and eventually be able to create such bullets. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Soon Shen Bei realized he had been too hasty. The lines of these strange patterns on the bullet were quite complex. Some intersecting lines made it impossible to know where to start. At the same time, due to his inexperience, his precision was lacking. After the first attempt at engraving, text appeared at the corner of his eye. Rifle bullet LV05, scratches on surface does not affect use. Shen Bei. Wasted effort. Gotta be more careful. He looked up at the wilderness, no one in sight, and continued engraving with his head down. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Shen Bei began copying the simplest patterns. EXP1, not bad, making progress. Continue. On the second line, one stroke gave no EXP. Without any disappointment, Shen Bei continued engraving. EXP1, EXP1. After Shen Bei gained 5 EXP, the entire bullet had no more space for engraving, but compared with the level 5 bullet, many lines were still missing. The main reason was that the lines Shen Bei engraved were too thick. The spacing between two lines could not compare with that of the level 5 bullet. The tool is a problem, and my technique is also lacking. He summed it up. Then he directly upgraded the bullet. Rifle bullet LV2, 0-10, scratches on surface, slightly increase range, slightly increase lethality. That's it. There were results, but nowhere near the level 5 bullet. However, for Shen Bei, this was a huge gain, no less than discovering a new world. Especially for someone like Shen Bei, who had no ability and relied solely on firearms, it was undoubtedly a great help. If I had more refined tools, I could definitely engrave level 5 bullets. Then Shen Bei didn't idle. He tried engraving revolver bullets. In a short while, the engraving was complete. Revolver bullet LV1, 55, upgrade. Revolver bullet LV2, 05, disposable item, scratches on surface. After this bullet hits the target, it will produce an explosive effect. At the same time, it will lose accuracy and range. Shen Bei frowned. The M500 revolver's lethal radius was within 250 meters, effective range within 50 meters. After this bullet gained the enhanced effect, it actually lost some accuracy and range. However, Shen Bei didn't care at all. As for the lost accuracy, it was no longer within his consideration. According to Shen Bei's plan, whenever he prepared to use the revolver, he would never be more than 20 meters from the target. Shen Bei calmly processed the bullets one after another, as if he would never tire or become weary. In the blink of an eye, a box of bullets was finished. The patterns engraved on each bullet head were identical. Even if carved by a precision machine, it would be no better. During this time, all the bullets Shen Bei could engrave were level 2. He had not yet engraved a level 3. Shen Bei wasn't in a hurry. After finishing things here, he would find that mystery-type esper and learn more. Shen Bei carefully put away the bullets, then took out a second box and opened it, as if 2 whole hours of repetitive work had not made him weary. His experience as a special forces soldier in his past life told him that sufficient patience was necessary for survival. Shen Bei looked up again, peering outside. Suddenly, in the distant wilderness, a figure appeared, carrying a corpse on its shoulders, sprinting toward his direction at a steady speed of about 30 miles per hour. Showing his back, Shen Bei packed up the bullets and tools at an incredible speed, grabbed the Barrett, and with a flash of his right hand loaded a modified bullet into the chamber. Then he dashed a few steps to the wall and peered outside through a crack in the wall. During all this, aside from the metallic click of the rifle being chambered, Shen Bei made no sound at all. At this moment, Shen Bei's rifle had no sight on it. But that did not hinder him from sniping. Shen Bei slightly squinted his eyes to block the reflection and carefully looked outside. He himself was skilled in long-range shooting, so he naturally knew what would reveal his position. Getting closer and closer, Shen Bei slowly extended the muzzle of his gun. The eagle-like man carried his brother Xiao Long on his back as he raced across the barren wilderness. Rage boiled within him. He had already sensed that his brother had met his end. Yet to his utter astonishment, when he reached the scene, not only was everyone dead, but they had all been felled by sniper fire. Examining each corpse, he discovered that aside from the bullet hole through Xiao Long's forehead, courtesy of a handgun, all others had been slain by sniper rifles. Instantly, Xiao Ying's thoughts flew to the sniper rifle Shen Bei carried. It was him. He killed them all. His face contorted with fury. If only I had known, I would have put him down this morning. But it was not too late, he thought. The moment Shen Bei showed up at Shelter No. 36, he would slay him without a second thought. An ordinary man's life or death meant nothing to the shelter. With that, Xiao Ying quickened his pace, leaping through the underbrush as he rushed back with burning urgency. At that very moment, Shen Bei's eyes tracked Xiao Ying's form from afar. The shaped crosshairs aligned with the softly rotating barrel, soon locking onto two legs darting wildly through the grass. He had intended to aim for the head or chest, but the dense foliage from overhanging branches obscured the target's. Within the crosshairs, the view of the thick forest floor was limited. Only two blurry legs flickered into view, churning rapidly. The angle of Xiao Ying's torso remained entirely unpredictable. A blind shot at the skull would likely miss, alerting his quarry. This first shot was critical. Slow down, turn back and gaze upon your evil spawn. Shen Bei mouthed the words soundlessly, tender blades of grass brushing against his cheek. Whiz. Seizing the moment when Xiao Ying's running legs abruptly halted, awaiting a change of direction from his brain, Shen Bei pulled the trigger. A shrieking bullet tore from the chamber, shattering the obstructing leaves as it hurtled toward its target. The bullet streaked at incredible speed, skimming the ground beneath the vegetation, carving a whistling trail. Just as Xiao Ying lifted his foot to run, the bullet struck the protruding bone of his left ankle. He crashed heavily like a galloping steed tripped by a hidden rope, falling forward without restraint, breaking his nose, shattering his front teeth, and splitting his lips. A brief thrash among the grass, then silence. Evidently, Xiao Ying possessed strong combat instincts. Even wounded, he did not panic or cry out. Instead, he remained eerily still, making no unnecessary movements, as if swallowed by the thicket. With lightning speed, Shen Bei ejected the spent casing from the chamber and readied his finger on the trigger, his eye fixed to the scope, never once losing sight of the target. After a careful scan, he spotted a flaw, a hand protruding from the foliage, glaringly out of place amid the tangled grass. The Barrett sniper rifle in Shen Bei's hand struck like a venomous serpent, delivering a second bite. A bullet raced along the still warm air trajectory. It shattered the exposed hand into pulp. Yet Shen Bei heard no scream, and after the hand burst, there was no reflexive movement. It was as if a dead man's hand. Shen Bei's heart lurched. Damn, that's Xiao Long's corpse. Horror still etched on his face, he snatched up his rifle and retreated behind a wall. It shattered the exposed hand into pulp. Yet Shen Bei heard no scream, and after the hand burst, the second shot had been a feint hitting the dead man. That meant Xiao Ying, hidden in the shadows, had already pinpointed his location and would be circling around. Left or right? Shen Bei had to relocate. At close range, he stood no chance against Xiao Ying. Gambling, he chose left. He crept low, scurrying to the left, then crawled forward on his belly, heading straight for Xiao Long's position. His plan was to shift position and strike Xiao Ying off guard when he emerged from the ruins, preferably with a headshot. Soon, Shen Bei reached the rear of Xiao Long's corpse and set up his sniper rifle. Almost simultaneously, a dark silhouette appeared at his original sniping spot. It was none other than Xiao Ying. Shen Bei's finger tightened on the trigger. He fired decisively. Bang! A bullet tore from the chamber, speeding toward the grass heap among the ruins. The white streak flashed through the thick foliage there and gone in an instant. Sunlight and shadow alternated on the bullet's surface at breakneck speed until it brushed a few stems of dense greenery, barely trembling, and vanished deep into the ruins. A puff of blood erupted among the rubble. Shen Bei believed he had landed a killing blow. Though Xiao Ying was an ability user, he was only first rank, while Shen Bei's sniper was level 3, the ammunition level 2. That would surely give him more than he could handle. But the next second, a rifle muzzle poked out from the ruins, spraying wildly in Shen Bei's direction. Rat-a-tat-tat. The gunfire was filled with impotent fury and blind luck. Shen Bei moved swiftly, using Xiao Long's body as a shield, then rolled quickly under a large tree. The firing ceased, and Xiao Ying's voice rang out from the ruins. Damn it, Shen Bei. It's you, isn't it? Shen Bei was startled, gaining a new understanding of ability users. Hit twice and still able to speak. He replied coolly, "That's right, strike first before the enemy strikes. You wouldn't hold a grudge, would you? You son of a bitch. So you really killed my brother. Still trying to kill me." Xiao Ying's venomous voice continued, "What, you think a gun can kill me? I'm an ability user. I suggest you surrender, and I'll spare your dog's life. Stop the trash talk." Shen Bei answered easily, "An ability user may be strong, but you're not bulletproof. Come out, let me put one between your eyes. If you survive, I'll let you kill me. How about that?" Xiao Ying fell silent. He had to admit a sniper rifle posed a lethal threat to ability users, especially first and second rank who were only slightly stronger than ordinary people. Only third rank and above could ignore bullets. Right now his ankle was shattered, severely limiting his movement, and he had just taken a bullet to the shoulder still lodged in the bone. He nearly passed out from the pain. Though he hadn't been killed outright, his life was in peril, and he was utterly on the defensive. Because his ability was strength enhancement, that meant he couldn't close the distance, he could only suffer passively. Xiao Ying scanned the terrain, stumped. With his wounded ankle his speed had plummeted. If Shen Bei kept him at a distance, he would eventually be toyed to death. What to do? Xiao Ying squinted at his injured ankle. Meanwhile, Shen Bei was also pondering his options. He dared not get too close. If Xiao Ying got his hands on him, he'd be pounded to a pulp in 2 moves. But Xiao Ying stayed hidden behind the wall. If they kept playing this waiting game, once Xiao Ying's foot healed death, with that thought Shen Bei slowly pulled out a level 5 bullet. He gave it one last look, memorizing the grain. Reluctant, but knowing he had to use it, he pushed it into the chamber. He couldn't afford to drag it out. Shen Bei couldn't afford to waste time. If the target had been an ordinary person, Shen Bei would have dared to charge with a revolver. But the adversary, Xiao Ying, was a supernatural being. His recovery ability far surpassed that of a normal person. No matter the cost, he had to seize this opportunity, striking while the iron was hot. Thus Shen Bei pushed a level 5 bullet into the chamber. Without hesitation, he pulled the trigger decisively. Bang! The projectile like a finger swept aside the soft vegetation at the edge of the stone pit at incredible speed, hurtling toward the ruins. In an instant, Xiao Ying, hidden in the ruins, clicked his tongue, firing blindly. The wall behind him was impenetrable to bullets. Useless effort. Xiao Ying had steadied his nerves, he would just wait it out. Whether Shen Bei retreated, charged, or did nothing at all, the final victor would be none other than himself. Time was on his side. Whoosh! Xiao Ying saw a bullet streak past overhead, leaving a white trail. But in the next breath, Xiao Ying's eyeball burst, his expression contorted in unspeakable horror, terror, oppression, and even despair cascading across his face. Because he saw that bullet trailing white, originally flying in a straight line. Suddenly, it changed its trajectory, as if drifting through the air, curving and turning back to shoot toward him. What the hell? Xiao Ying's face turned a ghastly purple, his eyes brimming with unparalleled terror, looking utterly horrific. He had never witnessed such a spine-chilling sight. It was simply inconceivable, unimaginable beyond belief. No matter how hard he racked his brains, he couldn't fathom why Shen Bei's bullet could fucking curve. Could it be that Shen Bei was also a supernatural? The ability to control bullets. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Yet the absurd scene unfolded before his eyes. Xiao Ying was completely stunned. Meanwhile, after Shen Bei connected his consciousness to the level 5 bullet and fired it, something miraculous occurred. He could share the bullet's vision. After the bullet grazed past Xiao Ying's head, Shen Bei instantly manipulated it to turn the warhead, directing toward the bewildered Xiao Ying. Bang! The bullet struck precisely into Xiao Ying's right eye, detonating inside his skull. The explosive force from the ammunition ravaged his brain tissue from within. The skull was blown open. Red and white matter spurted like boiling porridge, erupting upward. In Shen Bei's view, it resembled a fountain of brain matter. Shen Bei let out a soft breath. Having consumed a precious level 5 bullet, he had finally dealt with all the trouble. This time I won't have to kill the young, and then face the old, will I? Shen Bei stowed the Barrett on his back, and with a few bounds returned atop the ruins. Crouching on the broken wall, he looked at Xiao Ying's corpse, a smirk curling his lips, a supernatural. Humph. He turned and leaped down. Shen Bei began to rummage through Xiao Ying's pockets and satchel. A supernatural identification card. Shen Bei felt a twinge of envy. This card granted at least a 30 discount at all shelters, and may even scores a 50 discount in some places. Ordinary people were lucky if they weren't charged extra. Aside from miscellaneous items, the most valuable were the crystal cores. Shen Bei counted them. There were a full 330. Murder, arson, and gold belts. It's a universal truth in any world. Killing and plundering are the most profitable, cost-free trades. Shen Bei claimed the crystal cores as his own. He took a pack of cigarettes. The rest he discarded. After quickly eating some meat strips and drinking a few sips of water, Shen Bei began his return journey. His figure moved like a ghost through the ruins, now fast, now slow. This world, resembling a post-apocalyptic realm, was merely a human description. Humans craved fixed living spaces, but now under the relentless pursuit of erratic evil species, they could only rely on titans living a nomadic life of mass exodus. Yet for other ferocious beasts, this world was paradise. The wilderness was not barren. It contained all kinds of terrain and ecosystems. The return journey would take about 2 hours. Shen Bei tried to avoid fierce beasts, not seeking conflict. Not because he feared them, but because he needed to hurry back and complete the mine exploration task. The reward for that was far more cost-effective. But things didn't go as planned. An hour later, Shen Bei ran headlong into a peculiar life form. A stone man. It was over 3 meters tall, seemingly heavy, yet eerily, it moved almost without making. Usually it lay on the ground, blending with the earth, basking in the sun, and sleeping soundly, barely moving. But once awakened, it would relentlessly chase the creature that disturbed its slumber, never stopping until one was dead. The most troublesome aspect was the stone man's immensely sturdy body, impervious to blades and ordinary firearms. Generally, when encountering such a stone golem, it was best to have an ice-type supernatural in the team to freeze it, then stroll away unscathed. Once a fight started, it was a waste of time and not cost-effective. It was like a stone in a latrine, both hard and foul. Apart from supernaturals, there was a quicker way to kill it. That was to fire 5 bullets into the same spot in rapid succession, piercing its heart. That too was no easy. It demanded extremely precise marksmanship. If the shots were too slow, the stone golem's wound would heal instantly. Especially in a world swarming with supernaturals, their pistols had gradually become mere decorations. And ordinary people lacked the funds to buy enough bullets to train their shooting skills. So upon encountering a stone golem, most would simply turn and flee until the creature gave up. Shen Bei originally intended to run too, but the stone golem chased him like a rabid dog. After running 200 meters, Shen Bei was parched and panting from exhaustion. Enraged, Shen Bei drew his revolver, rolled sideways, took aim, and prepared to fire. He aimed at the stone golem's chest, but the creature moved slowly as well. Shen Bei then shifted his aim downward toward its thick leg joint. Rough, solid, simple, directly targeting it. Bang, 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 bang. 5 consecutive shots. The powerful bullets shattered half of the stone golem's left leg joint, causing its heavy body to topple to the left with a crash. Boom. Amidst the billowing dust, Shen Bei saw the leg joint rapidly regenerating. No wonder it's such a troublesome foe. Revolver LV2, 510. Shen Bei ignored the text prompt. With a flick of his finger, the cylinders swung open, 5 hot shell casings ejected, and 5 new bullets were deftly loaded into the chambers. With a click, the cylinders snapped back into place. Barely aiming, he raised the muzzle slightly, and as the stone golem tried to rise, immobilized, the barrel spat a long tongue of flame. Bang, bang, bang. 6 rounds fired consecutively at the stone golem's chest. Bang, 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 bang. The revolver's bullets packed a punch. The heavy recoil numbed Shen Bei's hand. 5 shots struck almost the same spot, carving a deep crater into the stone golem's chest. Then the creature shuddered and went still. Revolver 1710. Shen Bei holstered his pistol, lit a cigarette, a little disheartened. 10 bullets to kill a single stone golem. He obtained only 1 crystal core, and 1 crystal core could buy just 6 bullets. A loss. After extracting the core, Shen Bei continued on his way. At the same time, Shen Bei drew his revolver. Upgrade. Revolver LV3, 730 bullets, 5-cylinder, rotates with slight friction, rifling intact, damage, slightly increased capacity, 1A, recoil reduced by 20. Shen Bei felt a surge of excitement. This upgrade was impressive. Not only had the issue of sluggish pull vanished completely, but the capacity had also increased to 6, giving it a hint of the my mind ability. Awesome. Shen Bei gazed at his pistol and muttered, I feel like one day this revolver could turn into a Shen Bei quickly returned to the vicinity of Shelter 36. He could see the massive titan's mouth burrowing into the ground, continuously extracting water. Shen Bei walked northward, passing the shelter, and spotted a large mountain spanning across the wilderness. Beneath the mountain, every few kilometers, there was a pitch-black mine shaft. Some mines were operational, with humans operating steam-powered machines, suspending ropes to haul or carts out from below. They then dumped the ore or coal onto the ground to be transported back to the shelter. These still functional steam devices were jointly built by several shelters. Any shelter staying nearby, it was a bustling scene. Everyone was working against the clock, for the Titan's departure followed no pattern. Sometimes they stayed still for a year, other times they started moving the very next day. The difference in time was just that immense. Shen Bei arrived near one mine shaft numbered A013. Here a few logistics staff from the shelters were peering nervously into the mine. In the wilderness, though resources were unclaimed, the right to extract them belonged to the shelters. After all the defensive forces organized by ability, users left ordinary people no room for reckless actions. Shen Bei blended in with the crowd and chatted with a few logistics workers for a while. He then cut straight to the point. I want to take on a reconnaissance mission. A staff member named Ming Yi looked him up and down with an ambiguous smile. You. Yes. Let me see your ability user license. I'm an ordinary person, Shen Bei said honestly. Ming Yi clicked his tongue. Brother, not to be harsh, but anyone can take a mission, but you've got to stay alive to do it. If there really are fierce beasts lurking below, do you want to risk your life? Shen Bei replied steadily. Life and death are mine to handle. You needn't worry about that. Well, I think you'd better work as a laborer. You can earn some living expenses for the day. Another thing, Ming Yi continued, this reconnaissance mission has already been taken by 2 ability users. They should be back about now. Shen Bei clicked his tongue upon hearing this. He was too late. He sighed. Labor work. Impossible. He would never do labor work in this life. Since this mission had been snatched up, Shen Bei didn't hesitate and turned to leave. He intended to head into the mountains to seek out beasts to hunt, dig more spirit cores, and buy back his battle armor as soon as possible. Just then other workers at the mine entrance cried out in panic, something's wrong. Quick, someone come. Shen Bei, he saw an ability user staggering out of the mine entrance. His body was wrecked, his face like a crushed persimmon, one eyeball missing as if gouged out. His entire body bore the marks of rodent bites, blood dripping. Even the muscles on his arm had been gnawed clean, leaving white bones exposed. After falling to the ground, the ability user wore a look of extreme terror, managing only 4 words: help, danger. Unable to say another word, his body stiffened, and he died. Ming Yi's expression changed drastically, his pupils contracting. Hey, Lei Laohu, are you alive? What's down there? Speak. Hey, he's dead. A worker checked his breath. No signs of life. Damn it. Ming Yi's face twisted with anger. I'm afraid Lei Laohu is in deep trouble too. Another asked, Lei Laohu is still down there, maybe he's alive. Should we go back and ask for a higher ranked ability? We absolutely must mine the ore from this shaft. Ming Yi suddenly turned to Shen Bei, still got the guts to scout. Shen Bei's gaze was steady. What rank are these 2 ability users? Both first tier. They'll take this, Shen Bei said without a moment's hesitation. He had come for this mission in the first place. He wouldn't be scared off just because one ability user was missing and the other dead. In other words, if he had taken this mission earlier, he would have had to face the same dangers anyway. Men die for wealth, birds die for food. 2 first-tier ability users fell, but that didn't mean he would. Good. Ming Yi said directly, if you can clear out the thread inside, I'll add another 100 spirit cores, 300 total. If you bring Lei Laohu back alive, I'll add another 100. Shen Bei nodded, then rolled in a nearby mud puddle, covering himself in filth and mud. Ming Yi and the other workers watched Shen Bei's preparations and gasped, unable to help, exclaiming, damn, that's professional. He's masking his own scent, huh? Looks like this guy actually has a brain. Ability users never bother with such. Different folks have different strokes. Shen Bei wiped the mud from his eyelids and pulled a triangular bayonet from the dead ability user as a weapon. Without a word, he entered the mine. He walked cautiously through the deep cavern, his steps light and soft like a nimble cat, moving silently. His thick hooded cloak and the smell of earth prevented his scent and body heat from leaking, making it difficult for dangerous creatures that relied on smell or infrared vision to detect him. After all, beasts that lived underground must have exceptionally developed senses of smell and infrared vision. Meanwhile, Shen Bei gripped the sharp-edged triangular bayonet tightly. Its tip was honed to a deadly sharpness suitable for both slashing and thrusting, a truly fearsome weapon. Though the original host wasn't skilled in combat, Shen Bei had been a special forces soldier in his past life. The techniques of hand-to-hand combat and killing had come with him through his transmigration etched into his genes. In other words, combat skills were like data. Transmigration was akin to copy-pasting. Shen Bei's modified rifle and pistol were strapped to his back and hidden under his cloak. The pistol packed immense power but lacked accuracy, yet in the confined tunnels of the cave its lethality could multiply. The problem was that in this deep, silent passage the sound of gunfire would travel extremely far, essentially announcing his arrival to monsters several kilometers away. Given the circumstances, the bayonet was better suited to the environment. The mine wasn't completely dark. At intervals, kerosene lamps with shades had been lit on the walls. These were the lamps lit by the 2 previous ability users as they explored. Normally where the lamps stopped, that's where they had met their end. At a corner, Shen Bei suddenly halted, shrinking back into his cloak and slowly blending into the darkness. A low rustling came from the tunnel. A mutated rat a full meter long crawled out. Its disproportionately large nose had 2 nostrils flaring, constantly sniffing. Its tiny eyes were dull, seemingly almost degenerate. Decades ago, the rats on the surface belonged to the same species as these mutants. But now, after the world had been utterly transformed by abundant strange energy, these animals had also undergone a metamorphosis. Though the mutated rats had grown larger and stronger, Shen Bei's mind remained calm. From the original host's memories, 2 or 3 ordinary people could easily kill one if they were careful. It wasn't much of a threat. At the same time, Shen Bei was puzzled. Just mutated rats. Couldn't two ability users handle them? Were they that weak? He had a premonition that something far more dangerous than mutated rats lurked deeper in the mine. Without time to dwell, Shen Bei hid in a corner readying his bayonet. He waited. Gradually the mutated rat approached the turn near him. In that moment Shen Bei, quietly lurking in the darkness, suddenly moved. As the mutated rat drew nearly parallel with Shen Bei, he struck first. The triangular bayonet flashed out like lightning, piercing through the upper part of the rat's nose, penetrating its upper and lower jaws, and pinning it firmly to the ground. The nose was the mutated rat's greatest vulnerability. It let out a frenzied shriek, its short, stout, and razor-sharp claws clawing desperately at the ground, sending fragments of rock flying. In an instant it had gouged a pit into the hard stone. Meanwhile, Shen Bei gripped the upper end of the bayonet with his left hand, his seemingly slender arm, as immovable as a boulder. At the same time, he swayed his body to evade the mutated rat's clawing attacks. A single swipe of those claws would tear flesh and bone, the least of concerns being the wounds themselves, but the pathogens they carried. In this world, there was no medical insurance. Seeking treatment would cost a fortune. At that moment, the mutated rat, its vital area grievously injured, did not last even a minute. Its body twitched violently before it lay motionless on the ground. Shen Bei slowly withdrew the bayonet and flipped the rat over, revealing it to be a female. He frowned, and a flicker of unease crossed his face. Male mutated rats typically hunted alone, but whenever a female appeared, a male was always in tow. Shen Bei wasted not a single second. He quickly sidestepped a few paces, positioning himself in the center of the tunnel from which the rat had emerged. Crouching slightly with his front leg bent and rear foot braced, he leveled the bayonet, aiming it into the dark abyssal passage. The very instant the bayonet was leveled, a foul wind gusted from the tunnel, and a larger, more robust male mutated rat burst from the darkness, lunging through the air at Shen Bai's throat. The bayonet remained utterly still. Using the rat's own momentum, its sharp tip plunged deep into the rodent's throat, traversing its viscera and nearly emerging from its anus. Shen Bei released his grip and retreated several paces with a lightness and speed that seemed to glide over water. With a sharp crack, the mutated rat, mustering the last of its strength, clamped its massive jaws shut, biting fiercely onto the bayonet's handle. Though its incisors could gnaw through nearly any rock, they were no match for this thickened steel. With a grinding crunch, the metal bent, and the rat's teeth shattered in turn. The male rat's charge was too fierce. After crashing down from the air, it skidded several meters across the uneven ground before reaching Shen Bei. He raised his right leg and planted his foot on the rat's head. The rat squealed in agony and struggled, but its head could not lift from the ground. With every effort, the bayonet piercing its body inflicted unbearable pain. Even with such a grievous wound, it convulsed for over a minute before breathing its last. Shen Bei pulled out the bayonet, a wave of nausea washing over him. Killing these creatures was more repulsive than killing humans. Shen Bei pressed deeper into the cave. In the dark, jagged cavern, his eyes continuously swept the ground. He searched for the claw prints of mutated rats. The tracks grew numerous, scattered chaotically across various tunnels. Before long, the kerosene lamp's glow faded. Darkness swallowed Shen Bai's vision. Fortunately, sporadic patches of glowing moss and faintly luminescent puddles of filthy water provided some clarity. Shen Bei pursed his lips. The necessity of battle armor grew ever more apparent. If he could gain infrared vision through such armor, this darkness would be as bright as day. By now, Shen Bai's alertness had reached its peak. It was likely that the two psychics had been ambushed here. He crouched down and examined the ground closely. Indeed, there were chaotic human footprints and large puddles of blood mingled with mud. Looking deeper into the tunnel, he could see drag marks. Shen Bei, almost in a half-crouch, wrapped his cloak tightly and moved like a phantom, following the trail silently into the depths of the passage. Surprisingly, within this rugged tunnel, some spots seemed deliberately baited with empty aluminum cans. These cans were strung with ropes and suspended horizontally across the tunnel. An alarm system? Shen Bei was taken aback. This was clearly the work of intelligent beings. Had the mutated rats evolved to such a level of intellect? This reminded Shen Bei of the former rotting wolf leader. He rubbed his temples. These crude traps could not hinder him, but they forced him to slow his pace. He carefully stepped over them. After a long while, Shen Bei spotted an iron door. Simultaneously, the drag marks vanished inside. This iron door must be the mine's refuge chamber. Shen Bei drew his revolver. Taking a deep breath, he yanked open the heavy door with a creak and charged in. It was a hall of over 100 square meters. Within there were more than 30 mutated rats of various sizes, from nearly full-grown adults to blind newborns, clearly from 3 different litters. Given the 3-month maturation period of these rats, a litter could be produced roughly every month. This was still within the norm. What truly made Shen Bai's eyes bulge was the conspicuous large bed at the center of the hall. On the bed, a mutated rat whose form was eerily human-like was straddling a male human whose limbs were bound to the 4 bedposts, engaging in vigorous sexual intercourse. Its physical signs indicated it was female, yet its pointed snout and fangs remained exposed, and a long tail swished behind it. Moreover, it wore a complete set of the pencil skirt suit typical of old J.A.R.V.I.S career women. Its skin was not covered in the thick fur of other mutated rats. Its skin could almost be considered smooth, and its face more resembled that of an old J.A.R.V.I.S human professional woman. With a petite build, it rode the male human without restraint, producing a wet slapping sound. Yet from the way the other mutated rats carefully kept their distance from the bed and the fiercer crimson gleam in its eyes compared to ordinary rats, it was clear that this creature was the queen of the nest. At the same time, Shen Bei's gaze fell upon the human on the bed. He recognized him at once as J.A.R.V.I.S, the man Ming Yi had mentioned. J.A.R.V.I.S' clothes had already been stripped away. His face bore an expression of dead despair, trapped between life and death, enduring the rat queen's humiliation. For a moment, Shen Bei was stunned, his entire being numb. The scene was too damn shocking. One look sent a chill surging from his heels up his spine to the back of his skull. J.A.R.V.I.S was being raped by a rat. Though the queen resembled a human in form, she was fundamentally... Shen Bei nearly vomited. "Save me. Please save me." J.A.R.V.I.S cried out upon seeing Shen Bei, his voice hoarse, his face twitching wildly. Though he did not know Shen Bei, he was undoubtedly a rescuer sent from above. Without hesitation, Shen Bei raised his revolver. The dark muzzle aligned in a straight line fixed squarely on the rat queen's forehead. At that moment, the rat queen's mouth gaped wide, her eyes blazing with a dazzling red light. She bared 2-inch-long fangs and lunged at Shen Bei with speed greater than that of an ordinary mutated rat. Her contorted face with her mouth stretched to its limit was utterly grotesque. Bang, 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 bang. After the upgrade, the revolver's recoil had notably decreased. Shen Bei fired with a single hand without any hesitation. All 6 bullets were discharged almost simultaneously. The first pierced her neck, and the remaining 5 traced an arc along her collarbone, cleanly severing her head from her body. The sight made it seem as if the bullets from Shen Bei's revolver were a chainsaw. J.A.R.V.I.S stared in utter J.A.R.V.I.S' eyes bulged. He watched as the rat queen's head was effortlessly pierced by Shen Bei's bullet, rolling and thudding to the ground. Incredulity flooded his gaze, and his countenance instantly froze. "This. Just like that, she's dead. He didn't even use his ability." "Wait," J.A.R.V.I.S frowned. "This man doesn't seem to be an ability user. He's simply relying on the power of his pistol, bold and meticulous." With this thought, J.A.R.V.I.S couldn't help but show a hint of contempt. Even though being violated by rats was humiliating enough, as long as his life was no longer in danger, deep down, he still looked down on an ordinary man brandishing a gun and acting arrogantly. At that moment, Shen Bei slowly holstered his pistol. The other adult mutant rats in the hall finally reacted, screeching hysterically and charging toward him like mad. Shen Bei retreated again, gliding like over water, perfectly evading the mutant rat's attack range. Then with swift, mincing steps, he leaped out of the door and vanished into the deep, dark tunnel. Squeak, squeak, squeak. The mutant rats suddenly erupted in commotion, instinctively scrambling to rush out of the hall, chasing down the tunnel toward the depths where Shen Bei had disappeared. Meanwhile, Shen Bei ran to create distance while firing wildly. Hot shell casings clinked and clattered on the ground. Bang, bang. The muffled, heavy gunshots rang out at intervals, echoing through the winding tunnel in waves. 10 minutes later, Shen Bei slowly returned along the same path and entered the hall. By then, J.A.R.V.I.S had already freed himself from his restraints. Still naked and not even dressed, burning with fury, his face twisted, he swung his fists covered in steel element, smashing the remaining mutant rat pups in the hall into pulp, blow after blow. Extreme shame and rage nearly split his eyes open. He kept pounding again and again. He also dragged the rat queen's corpse over, hurling it and smashing it violently, then stomping its head to pieces. Shen Bei leaned against the doorway, watching with a faint smile. After venting his wrath, J.A.R.V.I.S slowly raised his head. His face was covered in the stinking blood splattered from the mutant rats. "What's your name?" "Shen Bei." "Shen Bei." J.A.R.V.I.S face was full of twisted, neurotic smiles. "You've got some nerve, an ordinary man daring to come down here. Where's my buddy?" "Dead." J.A.R.V.I.S cracked his neck. "What a pity. From now on, you'll be my underling. Go get me some clothes." Shen Bei raised an eyebrow, displeased. "Who spoiled you with such arrogant habits?" "Me, your underling." Shen Bei gave a cold laugh, not moving an inch. "Did you not hear me?" J.A.R.V.I.S gaze was filled with brutality, cruelty, and ruthlessness. "An ordinary man like you following me is the greatest honor of your life." Shen Bei's gaze turned icy and profound. He spoke slowly. "To be violated by rats alongside you." "Say that again, you bastard." J.A.R.V.I.S eyes were filled with terror, venom, and disbelief. "Looking for death, are you? I'm warning you, if you dare breathe a single word about this, I'll fucking kill you." Shen Bei narrowed his eyes. This idiot must be utterly brain damaged. Saving him only created a nuisance. Those 100 crystal cores were not worth it. That guy Lei Laohu has definitely suffered severe psychological trauma. If he gets out, he'll probably spend every day suspecting that I'm talking behind his back about him being violated by rats. Just thinking about it was annoying. Shen Bai's tone turned cold. A useless ability user who can't even beat a mutant rat, yet you brag in front of your savior. Forgetting the pain once the wound heals, huh? Damn your grandfather, are you looking for trouble? Did I ask you to save me? Wasn't it the people above who put up the bound? Lei Laohu continued fiercely. You took the money and did your job, but my status is still higher than yours. Don't expect me to be grateful. Don't forget you ordinary people are meant to serve ability users. Lei Laohu continued fiercely. You took the money and did your job, but my status is still higher than yours. Don't expect me to be grateful. Don't forget you ordinary people are meant to serve ability users. And bang. Shen Bei had no interest in listening to Lei Laohu's blabbering. He directly raised his revolver and decisively pulled the trigger. One bullet instantly blew Lei Laohu's head apart. Needless to say, at such close range, the upgraded pistol and ammunition had power greater than a Barrett. A first-rank ability user simply couldn't withstand it. The world fell silent. Shen Bei felt extremely exhilarated. For a piece of ungrateful trash like Lei Laohu, eliminating him was the best way to sever karmic ties. However, Shen Bei also had some losses. 100 crystal cores gone. Earlier Ming Yi had set a mission: if he could bring that guy back alive, there would be a reward. But since the guy had courted death himself, he couldn't blame Shen Bei for being ruthless. By now Shen Bei had completed the task of exploring the mine. The profit was about 300 crystal cores. Adding the loot from killing Xiao Ying and the yield from the mutant rats, his total assets reached over 700, not far from 1,000 crystal cores. Next, Shen Bei dragged Lei Laohu's corpse into an abandoned mine tunnel, found an underground shaft, and simply threw it down. Then he returned to the hall and dug out the crystal core from the Rat Queen's head, which had been smashed into pulp. Just as he was about to leave, he suddenly remembered something and turned back into the shelter chamber. That Lei Laohu guy probably has some goods, right? Shen Bei searched around and found Lei Laohu's bag in a corner. Opening it, a brilliant blue light emitted and Shen Bai's eyes widened in shock. Inside were about 300 crystal cores. This in just one day I can pay off my debts. Killing and looting is really profitable. Shen Bei joyfully pocketed them. Then he left the shelter chamber and continued deeper into the mine. Generally, mutant rats had strong territorial instincts, so there shouldn't be any other mutant rats occupying this tunnel. But out of caution, Shen Bei continued exploring. He was stopped by a wire mesh door. He moved away the debris blocking the door, then shot off the rusted lock with one bullet, and finally pushed open the wire mesh door. After climbing another 100 meters or so, Shen Bai's eyes narrowed slightly as bright sunlight fell on his face. Having been in the dark for so long, the sunlight stung his eyes uncomfortably. After adjusting a little, Shen Bei stepped onto the ground. At the stairway entrance, the warning sign reading pedestrians, no cars, no pedestrians, was still clearly visible, not completely faded by time. This was another exit of the mine. The scenery outside was no different from the entrance, the same desolation teeming with life. Looking around to the west was a vast wilderness, while to the east were countless high-rise buildings shrouded in mist, once the home of humanity. Now they were occupied by all kinds of strange and ferocious beasts. Shen Bei retraced his steps, carefully checking the mine tunnel twice to ensure there were no issues or leftover mutant rats. Then he returned to the entrance. The task handover went smoothly. Shen Bei briefly described the mutant rats, but did not mention Lei Laohu's whereabouts. When Ming Yi asked, he claimed ignorance. Shen Bei didn't want to end up like Xiaolong and Xiao Ying. Kill the junior, and the senior comes. The mission reward was settled on the spot, and he received 3 crystal cores. Yes, just 3. But they were larger in size, called intermediate crystal cores. 1 intermediate crystal core could be exchanged for 100 regular crystal cores. The rewards from this mission were fairly generous. After deducting expenses and repaying debts, he still had 100 crystal cores left. Shen Bei didn't linger. He directly returned to Shelter No. 36. He intended to purchase the custom-made unique battle armor. Time to upgrade. That was the right path. Shelter No. 36. Shen Bei climbed onto the Titan's back. He first went to the weapons store. He paid off all previous debts and also ordered a batch of sniper rifle and revolver bullets. Looks like you had a good harvest. Shen Bei smiled and nodded. As the saying goes, crime pays. The harvest was certainly exhilarating. By the way, I want to ask about something. After putting away the bullets, Shen Bei continued. I once saw a bullet engraved with patterns here. Do you remember the maker? Shen Bei thought that instead of groping blindly, it was better to directly ask the right person. Even spending money was worth it. But unexpectedly the boss sighed. I just got the news. He's dead. Dead? Shen Bai's mouth twitched. Was his luck really this bad? Although he felt a bit regretful, he wasn't too shaken. In this world, let alone ordinary people, even ability users die every day. Ability users also need to eat and drink, and they have to go out hunting to earn crystal cores. Moreover, crystal cores are related to their advancement in rank. He went out to the wasteland with someone and was smashed to death by a burst ape. The boss said it casually and easily. He had grown used to it. Shen Bei shrugged, chatted a bit more, and then left. In a moment, Shen Bei stepped into the institute's courtyard again. Inside the laboratory, he glanced around. Chenanji was working. The custom-made battle armor lay abandoned in a corner, gathering dust. At least it's still here. Chenanji was busy working. Upon seeing Shen Bei, he looked a bit impatient and continued fiddling with the thing in his hands, saying, "Your stuff is still here, not lost. You don't need to come every day. Come back when you've saved up 1,000 crystal cores. I don't do credit here." Before he could finish, Chenanji heard a few clinks on the table. He looked up and saw 3 mid-grade crystal cores and some other crystal cores spinning and rolling on the table. Meanwhile, Shen Bei had already walked to the other side of the lab and dragged the battle armor out from a pile of items. "You didn't have money yesterday, and today you earned it so quickly." Chenanji looked at Shen Bei with shock and wariness. After all, even for an ability user, earning 1,000 crystal cores in a single day was quite a difficult task. How could Shen Bei, an ordinary person, make money so fast? Had this guy stumbled into a nest of fierce beasts? Shen Bei just smiled and didn't answer. Originally, Shen Bei wanted to wear it back to his rental room, but this thing was still too cumbersome. He could walk back in it as long as he ignored the mocking glances of others and endured the physical exhaustion. Shen Bei thought for a moment and decided to carry it back instead. He picked up his battle armor with a joyful expression, as if holding a girlfriend. Not to mention it was quite heavy. But that wasn't a flaw. As long as it could be upgraded, it would eventually become a button-sized armor. "Thanks." Shen Bei happily carried the armor away. Chenanji rolled his eyes, muttering inwardly, "Wasteful bastard." After all that effort to earn money, he bought a giant toy to take home. As for why Chenanji didn't call Shen Bei a spendthrift, there was a reason. For the rich, it's called being extravagant. For the poor, it's called being wasteful. Shen Bei carried the armor back to the lower level, back to his rental room. It gave the landlord a big scare. The landlord walked around the armor several times, clicking his tongue in amazement. A 2-meter tall behemoth. Although most of it was made of plastic, making it look like a toy, the design still had a certain... "I'm thinking about charging you double rent for 2 people, the landlord said, propping his chin and yawning. Shen Bei said, "This isn't a person." "Haha," the landlord joked. "So are you going to sleep with it hugged?" "No, we'll wear it to sleep," Shen Bei said half-jokingly. Actually, Shen Bei was serious. If he wanted to level up quickly, he definitely had to wear it to sleep. The worst that could happen was discomfort. The landlord said, "I sincerely suggest you stop messing around with these gimmicks. Earn some money, find a wife, and have a kid. Wouldn't that be nice?" Shen Bei was momentarily stunned. In this hellish world, isn't that just making a child suffer? Even so, the landlord choked up, "But why do we live?" Shen Bei paused, then answered bluntly, "To survive, of course." "That's shallow." Suddenly the landlord became like a philosopher, rambling. "What is the meaning of life? To leave something that will be remembered by future generations. In most cases, to leave your own offspring, create your own replica, produce seeds, and raise them to adulthood." Shen Bei clicked his tongue, rolled his eyes, ignored him, and went upstairs. In a peaceful world, this kind of sermon was already like a nagging old woman. In this dangerous world, don't bother. Back in his room, Shen Bei placed the armor on the bed, leaving no room for himself to lie down and sleep. Nevertheless, Shen Bei was still excited and joyful. His enthusiasm was like someone who had just bought an inflatable doll, eager to get inside. But Shen Bei held back his impatience. To activate the armor, he needed a crystal core. It could only last 3 minutes. It was just getting dark, not yet time to rest. Otherwise, if he had to go to the bathroom, he'd have to take it off once, which would be a huge loss. Shen Bei decided to upgrade the armor first. With a thought, information about the armor popped up: pseudo-powered armor 1100111000, a battle armor with no practical value. Cannot fight, provide defense, or attack. Maybe it can be worn during celebrations to add festive atmosphere. When it was first assembled, this armor had already gained upgrade experience. But because Chenanji was present at the time, he feared that Shen might notice the armor's abnormality, making things hard to explain. Now finally he could upgrade. Upgrade. Pseudo-powered armor LV2, 12,000, a nearly useless battle armor. Using it in combat is irrational. However, its defense has slightly improved, walking speed slightly increased, mental link reaction speed slightly increased, and an infrared vision system has been added. During nighttime festive parades, you can keep up with others and see the road more clearly. After reading the information, Shen Bei clicked his tongue. There were changes, but still far from combat worthy. Though it was a small step, it was a giant leap in Shen Bai's overall combat power. Setting the armor aside for now, he decided that when it was time to rest, he would definitely give this naughty little armor a good sleep. He went out. Shen Bei arrived at a bar. In a good mood today, he planned to have some drinks and dinner. The bar's deep blue glass curtain wall was spotless. On the roof stood a huge billboard with a jumping flame logo that was extremely eye-catching. Blazing Fire Bar. This was one of the favorite places for commoners in the lower-class world society. The bar was dimly lit, filled with the scent of alcohol and hormones. Scantily clad women moved back and forth, trying to find men willing to pay for their services tonight. On the small stage, two almost nude dancers twisted their bodies wildly. Under the combined influence of hallucinogens and alcohol, they could dance frenziedly for nearly 2 hours before being carried off when exhausted. Quite a few men liked to vent their desires on their already exhausted bodies. Of course, these dancers were all quite attractive, and their price naturally matched their faces and figures. Shen Bei found a seat and had just sat down. An uninvited guest sat down across from him and said bluntly, "You're treating today."